Chapter 3169. But Mu Yan didn't even dare to move. She was afraid that the slightest movement would provoke the pervert in front of her again. Li Weiran suddenly chuckled. That smile was as bright as usual, but it had a twisted craziness to it. Ah, don't you hate my eyes? Because they were left to me by that man. If I dig them out, you'll be willing to look back at me, right? As he said that, he raised his hands to poke his eyes. Mu Yan jumped in fright. Quick thinking, she took out the dark cloud spirit flower from her storage ring and stuffed it into Li Weiran's hands along with the jade box. This is your favorite dark cloud spirit flower. Are you sure you don't want to take a look before you dig your eyes out? Li Weiran was stunned. He held the jade box in a fluster and even let go of Mu Yan's hand. Mu Yan let out a long sigh of relief. The youth holding the dark cloud's spirit flower had a pure and childlike smile on his face. His voice was soft and slow, as if he was afraid of startling something. Mother, look, it's the dark cloud's spirit flower. Mother. Mu Yan's mouth twitched. She wanted to smash this little pervert's head with a punch. He was clearly older than her by a few hundred years. It was fine if he called her sister before, but now he was even calling her mother. You want to be my son, but I don't want you. But very quickly, Mu Yan realized that Li Weiran wasn't talking to her. It was more like he was talking to himself. As long as you have the dark cloud spirit flower, you can cultivate, live forever, and stay with me forever. Mother, are you happy? Mu Yan silently took a step back. However, just as she moved, Li Weiran suddenly raised his head. Are you afraid of me? Just because my hands are stained with blood. Just because I killed those who bullied you. Just because. I'm the little monster in their mouths. Since you're so afraid, I'll kill until you get used to it, okay? As he spoke, he grabbed the air with his blood-stained hand, and a crippled man was lifted into the air by the neck by him. Butcher! Let go of Uncle Yu. The beautiful woman and the little monkey were terrified and wanted to rush over to save him. They had just seen how this demon killed without batting an eye. If their loved ones also died in his hands, Mu Yan suddenly narrowed her eyes, revealing a mocking expression. Enough, Li Weiran, stop pretending. You haven't lost your mind at all. What's the point of playing the fool? The dilapidated house fell into a strange silence. After a long while, the corners of the youth's lips slowly curled up. His head also turned slightly, and he asked with an innocent expression, I'm really curious, how did you see through it, Mu Yan? Mu Yan rolled her eyes and stepped forward to grab the jade box in Li Weiran's hands. None of your business, return my dark cloud's spirit flower to me. She thought that Li Weiran would refuse to give it to her. She didn't expect him to obediently let go this time. However, the person moved closer and said in a gentle voice, everyone who has seen my true face will die. Mu Yan, aren't you afraid? Mu Yan coldly glances at him. Did you really lose your mind and speak nonsense just now? Or was it all an act from the beginning? Li Weiran's expression froze for a moment, then he revealed a bright smile. Guess. Scram. Mu Yan kicked him away. I'm a normal person, I'm not interested in guessing what a pervert is thinking. Chapter 3170. As they speak, the sound of hurried footsteps comes from a distance. Everyone in the room also suddenly comes back to their senses. Oh no. The little monkey looks at the bloody corpses all over the ground, his face deathly pale. These are all mountain split sex people. They died here. If we're discovered, we're dead for sure. Mother, let's run. The beautiful woman shows a wry smile, but it also carries a trace of relief. She turns to look at Mayan, revealing a pleading expression. Miss, can I trouble you to take my son away? Mother, what nonsense are you talking about? How could I leave you alone? The little monkey shouts, moreover, you want me to go with this bad woman, I don't want it even if I die. The beautiful woman doesn't even look at the little monkey. She just looks at Mayan and says in a hoarse voice, I know this is very difficult for the miss, and I don't have anything to repay the miss with. Only this dagger can be used as a thank you gift. Seeing the beautiful woman take out the dagger, the several disabled brawny men show shocked expressions. They move their mouths, wanting to say something, but in the end, they swallow back their words. This dagger may not be of much use in Gravel Hill, but if the miss can leave this place one day, perhaps it can help the miss. I don't ask the miss to always take care of my child, but if one day you really can leave Gravel Hill, I beg you to take him with you. Mother. What are you talking about? The little monkey seems to realize something and can't help but cry, are you planning to die together with Uncle Butcher and the others? If you die, what's the point of me living? Mother, I don't want to be separated from you, even if I die, boo-hoo. The scarred man called Butcher also grits his teeth, Rui Nyang, we can't escape. But you're different, you have the little monkey, you have a new home, and the original vow doesn't count. If you want to die with the boss, we're enough. Right, Rui Nyang, it's enough for us to die with the boss. For so many years, you've done enough for us, for the boss. It's time for you to live your own life. Tears fall from the beautiful woman's eyes. Is she willing to abandon such a small child? Of course not. But these brothers have already vowed to live together, to die together. To follow the boss, and never leave. How could she break her promise? Rui Nyang chuckled and suddenly pressed a finger on the little monkey's nape. Her hand was weak, but the little monkey was just a child after all. When its acupoint was hit, it soon fell down softly. When he closed his eyes, tears had already wet his thin cheeks. Rui Nyang's face is filled with reluctance as she takes one last look at the child in her arms. Only then does she hand the child and the dagger over to Mayan. However, Mu Yen didn't take it. The footsteps outside the house were getting closer and closer. It was obvious that a large number of powerful people had surrounded the refugee cave. Voices of fear and unease could be heard outside the house, discussing what had happened. Rui Nyang had an anxious look on her face. Miss, do you still resent the little monkey for lying to you? Please believe me, this dagger is worth more than you think. If you still have anger in your heart, I can let you vent it. Please. Mayan raises her hand and the 7 absolute swords slowly appear. Her lips curled into a cold smile. I'm sorry, but I can't accept your request. Because I changed my mind. Chapter 3171. Rui Nyang and the crippled men were shocked. Butcher instinctively moved over and stood in front of Rui Nyang and the little monkey, afraid that Mu Yen would suddenly hurt them. Rui Nyang gritted her teeth, what does Miss want? Mayan says unhurriedly, it's really too troublesome and a waste of time to go around and buy materials in this ghost market. I just thought of a way to solve this once and for all. I can collect all the resources in the entire gravel mound and choose from them. Rui Nyang said blankly, what way? Mu Yan looked out the window, the 7 absolute swords in her hands emitting a dazzling light. Of course it's to destroy the mountain split sect and become the king of this gravel mound. Rui Nyang, crippled men, you're joking right? Butcher couldn't help but exclaim, I know you just entered the gravel mound, so it's inevitable that you're arrogant and look down on the mortals here. But you have to know that spirit masters and sword cultivators can't use spiritual power here. You can't even use 10% of your strength, so how are you going to fight against the entire mountain split sect? Mu Yan raised her sword and lightly swept it, causing a loud bang on the roof. Half of the dilapidated house collapsed. How are you going to fight against the entire Mountain Split sect? She said slowly, of course I'll beat them until they're convinced. If that's not enough, then I'll just kill them all. In the air, strands of spiritual power swirled around the girl. No. Other than spiritual power, there were other more powerful and vigorous energies. Mu Yan's figure flashed and she leaped onto the roof. Li Weiran also disappeared from his spot. Ruin Yang and Butcher looked at the gray-blue sky above the hole, their eyes widening. They suddenly realized that the two of them were different. They were incompatible with the entire gravel mound from the start. There was no reaction when they took the bone-softening powder. They could easily kill more than 10 mountain-splitting sect disciples. They didn't have a trace of the heavy aura of death that belonged to the refugees of the gravel mound. Ruin Yang. Ruin Yang. Butcher realized that his voice was hoarse and trembling as he spoke. We've waited for so many years for redemption, the hope that we've been searching for. Maybe we found it today. Ruin Yang's face was pale as she placed the little monkey in her arms on the bed. She dragged her limp body into the inner room, swaying. The light from outside shone into the room, illuminating the silhouette of a man sleeping on the bed. However, Ruin Yang did not walk closer. Instead, she leaned against the door and looked at the man. Tears flowed down her cheeks. Boss. General, you've slept long enough. It's time to wake up. Butcher and the rest had already come to Ruin Yang's side. Each of the 7-feet-tall men couldn't help but have red eyes at this moment. General, did you see that? We've finally found someone who can save you. The 7 ultimate swords were slowly withdrawn. The last drop of blood fell from the tip of the sword, and the translucent sword became crystal clear again. Mu Yan's gaze sweeps over the person lying on the ground. Do you still want to fight? No, I'm not fighting anymore. Heroine. Demoness. No. Please spare my life. The robust men wearing the Mountain Split Sect's disciple attire shook their heads like a rattledrum, the terror in their eyes almost materializing. Mu Yan raises her brows. Didn't you just say that if I dared to injure a Mountain Split Sect disciple, I would absolutely not have a good ending? Chapter 3172. We had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. We were wrong. Female Demon King, you're invincible. How could our Mountain Split Sect be your opponent? These people were just short of crying themselves hoarse. This woman was really too strong. She alone took care of all the Mountain Split Sect disciples surrounding the Ghost Market. The key point was that this was already 70% of Mountain Split Sect's fighting strength. Even 70% was taken care of so easily. What about the remaining 30%? How could they not surrender? Li Weiran had unknowingly landed beside Mayan, chuckling. Mayan is really a good person who repaid evil with good. Those people clearly wanted to scheme against you, but in the end, when they shed 2 tears in front of you, you saved them. Such kindness and stupidity, you'll suffer big losses in the future. Mayan coldly looked at him. Li Weiran, did you forget who provoked Zhang Guihong? Who killed the Mountain Split Sect's people first? Who left me a mess? Just who was it? Li Weiran stared blankly. His expression didn't change for a long time. Mayan could feel that the pair of eyes under the red silk were staring at her. Even if this gaze was separated by a layer of cloth, she could still feel the uncomfortably invasive nature. Mayan frowned and was about to speak. But she saw the youth opposite her innocently and cheerfully curl his lips. It seems to be me. So Mayan, did you change your mind because of me, and plan to destroy Mountain Split Sect? It turns out that my charm in Mayan's heart is already this great. Scram! Mayan kicked him away. Damn it, could this little pervert be even more narcissistic? What happened next was like a dream to everyone in the gravel hill. Especially the Guadapeng brothers. Because Mountain Split sect sent people to investigate the people who went in and out of Mount Yunluo 10 days ago, they were finally found out. Thus, Guadipeng's family was captured and brought to Mountain Split sect to interrogate them about Mayan's whereabouts. However, without waiting for the Guadipeng brothers to undergo the torture, the girl who single-handedly killed the cloud beast descended from the sky and directly stepped on Mountain Split sect steward, Zhang Yekuan. Zhang Yekuan desperately raised his head and glared at the girl in front of him. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. Why can you use spiritual power? Who are you? Mu Yan condescendingly looks at him and chuckles. Do you want to know? Then go to the underworld and ask King Yanluo. No. No. You can't kill me. I'm a steward appointed by the mountain-splitting sect. Every 3 months, the mountain-splitting sect will send people to inspect the crushed rock mound. If you kill me, you won't be able to live either. Mu Yan purses her lips. 3 months, that's too long. I don't want to stay in this damned place for 3 days. As soon as he finished speaking, the 7 ultimate sword flashed and Zhang Yekuan's head was separated from his body. The massacre did not last long. Yes, a massacre. A young girl, wielding a long sword, single-handedly massacred the sole overlord of Crushed Stone Mound, the mountain-splitting sect. This incident was like a hurricane that swept through the entire rocky mound. From the very beginning when he was watching the battle at the Ghost Fair, he pitied this young girl. Later, when he saw her kill everyone, he was horrified. Now, all that was left was disbelief, and they couldn't summon the slightest bit of respect and submission to him. And this transformation only took a short day. The bright moon hung high in the sky, a girl dressed in men's clothing and wearing an ugly mask stood on a high roof, looking down at the crowd gathered below. As far as she could see, the other people on the rocky mound were still anxious and fearful. Chapter 3173. The disciples and lackeys of Mountain Split sect are already kneeling on the ground in fright. Spare us, female demon queen. We're willing to do whatever you want us to do. We only ask you to spare our lives. That's right. We can serve Steward Zhang like an ox or a horse. No. We'll definitely serve Steward Zhang even more diligently. We're really very useful, please spare us. Mu Yan, enough, all of you shut up. I've gathered everyone in Gravel Hill, there really is something I need you to do. She flips her wrist, and a photographic talisman appears between her fingers. Even if they already knew that this girl could use spiritual energy in Gravel Hill, everyone is still stunned by the scene in front of them. The photographic talisman ignites, shining with a bright light. Immediately after, a projection appears in front of everyone. What's written on it are the actual materials, and their real drawings. What is this? I heard that the spirit masters outside can record everything they see, and then present it on a piece of paper. I thought it was fake. These are the natives of Gravel Hill who have never been in contact with the outside world, and don't know what spiritual energy is. And those cultivators who were abandoned here after their cultivation was crippled, they can't help but clench their fists, the rims of their eyes red. They didn't expect that they would still be able to see people using spiritual energy in their lifetime. Who is this girl? Why can she use spiritual energy in Gravel Hill? Moreover, what does she want to do by looking for the things shown in the photographic talisman? Mu Yan's gaze sweeps over everyone present, and she uses spiritual energy to amplify her voice. My request is very simple. Everyone, even if you have to turn over the entire Gravel Hill, you must find these materials for me. As long as you can find any one of them. Mu Yan raises her hand, and a small mountain of cloud bones, cloud beast hides, and vast beast meat appears by her side. These are the rewards. Seeing the things that Mu Yan takes out, the eyes of the people below stare straight. They don't even have the time to investigate where Mu Yen took these things out from. Because this reward is simply too generous. If a year's worth of rations from Mountain Split sect is already enough to attract everyone to take risks, then these things that Mu Yen takes out are enough to make them go crazy. I seem to have seen a third thing. I have to go to the garbage mountain to look for it. I've also seen a few of them. No, I have to go home and take a look. The crowd was in an uproar. These people even forgot to be afraid of Mu Yen. One by one, they excitedly wanted to run home, or immediately go to the garbage mountain to search. However, at this moment, a man's deep voice came from the crowd. Why are you looking for these things? Mayan looks down and can't help but raise her eyebrows. She saw that Ruin Yang was struggling to push Muta's wheelchair towards them. In the wheelchair sat a middle-aged man with a face full of stubble. His hands were thin and weak, and it was obvious that the tendons in his arms and legs had been broken, just like Butcher and the others. But even so, he still held a pot of wine in his hand and took a sip from time to time. Even if more than half of that mouthful of wine spilled outside, he didn't care. Mu Yen realized that this drunkard was probably the boss that Ruin Yang and the Butcher were talking about. At this moment, the attention of the others could not help but be attracted by this question. Chapter 3174. All of them look towards Mu Yan's direction. Mu Yen stares at the drunkard for a long time, then lightly says, "Didn't you already see it? I want to make an array disc, that can break the Gravel Hills enchantment. Xiuxian Continent, Polar Domain. Di Ming Ju, that's enough. Send someone to ask every day, aren't you tired of it?" In the quiet Lingxiao Hall, an exasperated teenager's voice suddenly resounds. Han Chuzhou, carrying a subordinate of the Yenyu tribe, comes as fast as lightning. His face is flushed, and half of the beard stuck to his lips has fallen off. Because he was too angry, his beard was blown up by the wind. Coupled with his slightly immature face, he looked especially cute and adorable. As soon as Han Chuzhou lands, he throws the person he is carrying to the ground. As a result, because of carelessness, the beard on his face is pulled off. As soon as Han Chuzhou looked up, she saw the reflection of her childish and pretty face on the glass pillar of the Divine Wind Palace. He suddenly gets even angrier and kicks the subordinate of the Yenyu tribe. He points to Han Yi and curses, "Han Yi, I'm warning you. Next time, if you let your men harass me in the Medicine King Hall, I will poison the entire Yenyu tribe." Han Yi dryly laughs twice, "Medicine King, don't be like this. We are just concerned about your apprentice. After all, she hasn't entered the inheritance space for so long. Bah! Don't put on airs in front of me." Han Chuzhou disdainfully says, "Di Ming Ju, don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. You are coveting my precious apprentice. You want to find her through my inheritance space and take her for yourself. Do you think I will let you, a womanizer, get what you want?" Bang! An explosive grain directly hits Han Chuzhou's forehead. Elder Chang angrily says, "Xiao Zhou, how many times have I told you, you are not allowed to be rude to Jun Shang?" Humph! Han Chuzhou arrogantly turns his face, he is not a respectable old man, he dares to covet my delicate baby apprentice. The corner of Chang Lao's mouth twitched, and he said in a bad tone, "Han Chuzhou, with Jun Shang's appearance, strength, and background, is he really not worthy of your disciple? Then tell me, where are you going to find a man more outstanding than Jun Shang?" Han Chuzhou's eyebrows wrinkled and seriously think about it. However, what made him depressed was, fumbling around, he really can't find a man more outstanding than Di Ming Ju. Bastard! How infuriating! Big, I will let my precious disciple be a queen and raise a bunch of pretty boys. Han Chuzhou's neck stiffened. However, before he could finish his sentence, The expression of the man, who had been indifferent all this while, suddenly darkened. A creepy cold pressure instantly swept Han Chuzhou's body. Di Mingju uses an almost tranquil voice to slowly say it again. Han Chuzhou suddenly withered. Can't I just say it? Di Mingju, why on earth do you come every day to ask about my disciple's news? If you want to pursue my disciple, then go to the Shozhen continent by yourself. Humph, anyway, her disciple has a fiancé, she certainly won't take a fancy to Di Mingju, this peacock. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if she really takes a fancy to Di Mingju, it's better than her previous fickle and two-timing fiancé. Han Yi sighs and says, do you think Jun Shang doesn't want to go to the Shozhen continent? It's because the space barrier was destroyed and the heaven stairway collapsed that we are so worried. Chapter 3175. What? The heaven stairway collapsed. Han Chuzhou says in disbelief, how is that possible? Then how can my good disciple ascend? As they are talking, they hear a voice coming from outside the room. Jun Shang, the island master of Linglong Island, requests an audience. Yu Yanran, what is she doing here? Han Yi says somewhat unhappily. In fact, Linglong Island has a transcendent status in the polar domain. The former island master and his wife have superb cultivation, proficient in support and fighting, and have always had a good relationship with the polar domain's imperial court. And after Yu Yanran took over the position of island master, although her strength isn't high enough, she has always been low-key and calm, not as domineering as Tian Yimen. Therefore, the people of the polar domain have always had a good impression of Linglong Island and Yu Yanran. However, this time, the disaster of Pillar of Sky collapsing makes Han Yi and the others' impression of her take a sharp turn for the worse. In the past, Yu Yanran had always displayed an extraordinary and refined appearance, aloof from worldly affairs. It's almost impossible to see that she has any feelings for Di Mingju. But now that she knows that Di Mingju has a sweetheart, she looks like she's been betrayed. And that deputy island master Huang, he opens his mouth and says that the polar domain can't distinguish right from wrong, ungrateful. Making their Jun Shang look like an ungrateful scumbag. What kind of joke is this? Their Jun Shang clearly didn't even give that Yu Yanran a proper look. Han Yi is filled with righteous indignation as he thinks. He hears his Jun Shang coldly reply, I won't see her. However, two people have already appeared outside the door. Jun Shang, Yinran Fairy has come from afar, how can you so stiffly refuse to see her? The one speaking is a slightly aged female voice. Immediately after, they see a middle-aged woman with graying temples, slowly leading Yu Yanran into the main hall. Compared to the other people of the polar domain who are respectful and fearful of Di Mingju, this middle-aged woman is clearly more intimate. She looks at Di Mingju with eyes full of love and pity. But when Han Yi and the others see her, their expressions turn cold. They promptly bow and say, Greetings, Sect Leader Tong. I didn't expect Sect Leader Tong to come out so soon. Sect Leader Tong's original name is Tong Huinyan, and she can be considered as a wet nurse who served Di Mingju as he grew up. As she was talented and experienced, she slowly rose from a lowly maidservant to a leader. Everything in the Lingshao Hall was managed and arranged by her. It was only because Tong Huinyan had been in seclusion for the past few years that Elder Chang was temporarily in charge of it. Elder Chang stroked his beard and said with a grin, long time no see, Palm Master Tong's cultivation has improved quite a bit. Thank you for the compliment, Brother Chang. It's been hard on you, Brother Chang. Tong Huinyan only gives a faint nod towards Han Yi and the others. However, his expression was slightly more respectful as he bowed to Elder Chang. After greeting Elder Chang, she raises her head to look at Di Mingju. After that, he slowly knelt down, prostrated himself on the ground, and paid his respects. Your servant greets the imperial monarch. Seeing that the emperor is well and has become the only immortal emperor, this servant is extremely gratified. However, before she could kneel down, she was dragged up by a flexible force. Towards her, Di Mingju shows a rare softness. Aunt Tong doesn't need to be so polite. Only then did Commander Tong stand up with a smile. Yu Yanran timely reaches out to support him. Commander Tong benevolently glances at her, his eyes filled with nostalgia. In the blink of an eye, Yanran, you've grown up so much. Why haven't you come to the polar domain for a walk these past few years? Do you want to separate from our polar domain? Chapter 3176. Yu Yanran bit her lips and couldn't help but look at Di Mingju. She forced a smile and said, Tong Zhongling is joking. Di Jun once saved Yanran's life. I only feel grateful to polar domain, how can I be distant? It's just that Yanran has been in seclusion these past 2 years and hasn't been able to come out. Tong Huanyan was obviously very satisfied with her answer and gently patted her hand. Good child, don't call me Tong Zhongling, just call me Tong Yi like Jun Shang. I watched all of you grow up. At that time, both of you were still little children. Shuiyu was cute, I didn't expect that you two would become such a perfect couple. Yu Yanran's cheeks blushed and she showed a shy expression. She tenderly scolded, Tong Yi, what nonsense are you talking about? Tong Zhongling wanted to tease her a bit more. But she heard Di Mingju coldly say, Tong Yi, be careful with your words, Ben Jun already has a fiancé. Tong Zhongling frowned and seemed to want to say something, but in the end, she restrained herself. She revealed a smile and said, Jun Shang, even if you have a fiancé, you can't treat Island Master Yu coldly. In the end, you two have been together since childhood, it's not something that others can compare to. Now that you've been estranged for many years, you should get along well and recover your childhood memories. As soon as she said this, Di Mingju didn't have time to say anything. Han Chuzhou was already stomping her feet. Old woman Tong, what do you mean? Di Mingju already said that he has a fiancé, but you still encourage him to get along with other women. Are you planning to let him have a foot on 2 boats? Medicine Wang, what nonsense are you talking about? Tong Huanyan's face sank. Di Jun is the king of polar domain, the supreme person in this world. Even if it's 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, it's still proper, let alone 2 or 3 women. Sure enough. Sure enough. I already knew that Di Mingju, you womanizer, is not a good thing. Han Chuzhou was about to explode with anger. She no longer cared about Elder Chang's obstruction. She pointed at Di Mingju's nose and scolded, I see through you, you and Di Beixian are the same kind of goods. Flirting everywhere, half-hearted, fickle, shameless. Di Mingju's face was so gloomy that it could drip water. Shut. This monarch will only have 1 wife, and the polar domain will only have 1 mistress. Elder Chang coughed lightly. Little 9, watch your words. What 3 palaces and 6 courtyards? It's not like Jun Shang said that. Why are you scolding Jun Shang for no reason? Yes, yes. We, Jun Shang, can't take the blame for this. Han Yi says, Medicine King, you mustn't go out and talk nonsense. Even Star Wolf couldn't help but mutter, especially not to your disciple. Tong Huanyan frowned and said, Han Chuzhou, don't be too disrespectful. Is this the attitude you should have when speaking to Jun Shang? Besides, when did an outsider like you get to meddle in the affairs of my polar domain? Usually, when Han Chuzhou heard this sentence, she would have already exploded. But at this moment, he proudly puffed out his chest. Outsiders. You call me an outsider. Ha ha ha, why don't you ask who Di Mingju wants to marry as his fiancé? Tong Huanyan can't help but turn her gaze towards Han Yi. Han Yi coughed lightly. Jun Shang's fiancé is Medicine King Darren's disciple. Han Chujiu raises her round chin proudly. She swept past Tong Huanyan and looked at Yu Yanran. What qualifications does a pretentious woman have to be compared with his precious disciple? Ha! Han Chujiu's face first shows a puzzled expression, then she suddenly stares at Yu Yanran. Why do you have the breath of a curse on your body? Chapter 3177. As soon as these words came out, the whole hall suddenly quieted down. Everyone, including Tong Huanyan, looked at Yu Yanran with a sharp gaze. Yu Yanran's heart panicked, her back was covered with fine beads of sweat. However, she still had a confused and aggrieved look on her face. What, curse, aura? I don't know what you are talking about. Master Medicine, even if you hate me, you don't need to slander me like this, right? Han Chujiu sneered. As long as it's related to curse, this old man can feel it clearly even in my sleep. The curse on your body is faint, but I will not make a mistake. It should be the soul-chasing curse, or the traction curse, which is a kind of heartless curse. That's why the aura is so faint. Little girl, I advise you to tell us immediately, who is using the curse technique around you. Hearing the words soul-chasing curse, Di Mingju's long eyelashes drooped, covering the cold light in his eyes. Yu Yanran's expression was still impeccable. But from the original confusion, it turned into anger full of injustice. She faced Di Mingju and coldly said, Di Jun, Yanran came here this time to ask for the new Heaven Spirit detoxification pill. If the Polar Domain and Medicine King are not willing to give it, then forget it. Why do you have to humiliate me like this? Saying that Yanran has the breath of curse on her body, I don't even know what curse it is. How can I have anything to do with such a dirty thing? Since the Polar Domain doesn't welcome the people of my Linglong Island, then Yanran will leave. Tong Huanyan's face showed hesitation. Maybe Island Master you accidentally got it outside. Medicine King, you can't be too arbitrary. Han Chujiu sneered, keep pretending, keep pretending. I may not be sure if I can recognize other things, but if I can't even distinguish whether the breath of curse was accidentally or deeply touched, then I, Han Chujiu, will write my name backwards. Di Mingju, I warn you, the Heaven Spirit detoxification pill was refined by my disciple. I don't care if you give it to other people, but this woman and her Linglong Island, you are not allowed to give it to her. Otherwise, I will go to my treasured disciple and complain that you are two-timing. After that, Han Chujiu didn't wait for Di Mingju to answer, she turned around and disappeared into the distance. Yu Yanran bit her lips. Emperor, Yanran bids farewell. Straightening her back, she slowly turned around and walked out of the hall. With every step she took, she longed for the man behind her to stop her. He wanted to tell her that he had misunderstood her, or ask her to take the Heaven Spirit detoxification pill away. However, there was nothing. There was nothing to persuade him to stay. Even when Yu Yanran could not help but turn her head. He heard a loud bang behind him. The door of Lingshao Hall was closed, and she was coldly shut out like an outsider. Two streams of tears rolled down Yu Yanran's cheeks as she clenched her fists tightly. Only after a long time did he turn around and leave. Inside the hall. As soon as Di Mingju senses Yu Yanran's aura disappearing, he immediately says, "Ing Mei, go investigate Linglong Island's movements during this period of time. Especially investigate whether they've had any contact with Ling Qingwan and Ling Yuexia." Ing Mei stared blankly. "Jun Shang, are you suspecting?" Di Mingju sneered. The curse that was placed on Ling Yuexia's body was the soul-chasing curse. Ing Mei's face turned cold. He quickly bowed and said, "This subordinate obeys." Chapter 3178. Ming-ju closes his eyes, his slender fingers gently turning the ethereal ring on his finger. He suddenly says in a deep voice, "Go call Mo Jing-ching over." A quarter of an hour later. Jun, you're such a great person, you should have no time to joke with your subordinates, right? Mo Jing-ching shakes his dizzy head, showing a pitiful smile. His two thick eyebrows droop into a slanted eyebrow. Can we not indulge in fantasy? Opening the space barrier in 3 months was enough to kill me. Now you're telling me you want to shorten the time. Why don't you just kill me and be done with it? Ming-ju loosens his grip on the ethereal ring, slowly saying, "What if we use curse to temporarily create a passage?" Mo Jing-chang's expression stiffens. He looks up at the man sitting on the supreme throne in disbelief. After a long time, he finally can't help but let out a hysterical roar. Ming-ju, have you lost your mind? Floating island, gravel mounds, garbage mountain. At this moment, it's densely packed with people. Everyone is looking for something with their heads down. Ah, it's 100 feet long silk. I found this, ah. An excited cry comes from the garbage mountain. A tall and thin middle-aged man waves the contaminated and dirty silk in his hand, shouting excitedly. The people around him cast envious and jealous gazes at him. But it's just gazes. Because they've already experienced it before. Stealing other people's resources, passing them off as their own. They'll be beaten up by that she-devil until they don't look human anymore. What's more, they're desperately searching here, not only for the rewards, but also because of what the she-devil said. I want to make an array disc, that can break the barrier of gravel mound. In the garbage mountain, someone suddenly says, is what that she-devil said true? Can she really destroy the barrier of gravel mound? This person's voice isn't heavy. But many people around him can't help but straighten up. How is that possible? Do you know how long the barrier of gravel mound has existed? If someone could break it, would we still be trapped here for generations? But Miss June can easily kill a cloud beast that even 100 of us at Crushed Stone Mound can't kill, Guadapeng suddenly said. The scene fell silent for a moment. Even if Guadapeng didn't mention it, everyone was already suspicious. That she-devil took out so many cloud bones and cloud beast hides as rewards. But where did these cloud bones and beast skins come from? Could it be that she killed it herself? How was it possible for a single person to kill so many cloud beasts? However, he had done such an inconceivable thing as annihilating the mountain split sect all by himself. What was impossible about killing a few cloud beasts? Could it be that she can really break the barrier of Stony Mound? Does that mean that we can also leave Crushed Stone Mound? Everyone murmured softly. The expression on his face was one of bewilderment, expectation, fear, and terror. But soon, someone laughed dryly and said, what are we dreaming about? Everyone knows that Crushed Stone Mound only allows people to enter but not leave. How could it change? That's right. Even if that woman is strong enough to kill the entire mountain split sect, what's the use? As long as she can't escape, when the mountain split sect's inner sect people come in, she'll still die. Chapter 3179. Just as they were talking, a scream came from afar. Everyone, stop going through the garbage mountain. The materials for the arrayed disc have been gathered. What? They're all gathered. I want to see what can be made from these waste materials. Quick, let's go take a look. That female demon is so arrogant. If she can't leave the gravel hill, her expression will be interesting. On the roof of the Zhang residence, Mu Yan was carefully processing the materials she had just collected. She turned a blind eye to the dense crowd below the roof. Li Weiran was sitting not far from her, teasing the little chick with a green foxtail grass. The little chick was crying from being bullied by Qi Huang in the Tian Mo Qin space. It wanted to complain to its mother after it came out. However, it found that Mu Yan was busy processing the materials for the arrayed disc and completely ignored it. She could only hold back her tears and turn to her blindfolded brother for comfort. Li Weiran was teasing the little chick with the foxtail grass. He said casually, "Even a chicken is so special and interesting among the things around Mu Yan." Guguji, the silly chick, made a crisp sound, squinting its eyes and tilting its head, looking like it was being praised. The ahog on its head was still standing up. However, the next sentence was heard from Li Weiran, "I don't know if you would taste good if I stewed you and ate you." "Hey, Mu Yan, do you want to try it?" Gugu dash. The little chick shivered, its face full of fear. It screamed and jumped into Mu Yan's arms. Mu Yan coldly glanced at the trembling little chick in her arms, not intending to comfort it at all. "Ha, stupid son of a chicken, now you know how scary that little pervert is, right? Who told you to go up to her every day? You won't even know when you'll be sold." Mu Yan concentrated and quickly finished the arrayed disc in her hands. She jumped down from the roof of the Zhang residence and dashed towards the enchantment like a bolt of lightning. The crowd saw her move and immediately followed. In front of the enchantment is the storm wind blade belt. That woman actually rushed over just like that. Is she stupid? Ha, no one must have told that female demon how dangerous the storm wind blade belt is. He deserved to die. Even a stupid woman like that wants to break the crushed stone ridge. Damn. Before the crowd could finish their mocking words, the girl in front of them casually threw out an array disc. Then, the lethal, tempest wind blade belt vanished. Disappeared. How was this possible? Everyone was dumbfounded. Like wandering ghosts, they followed the girl's figure and arrived in front of the thick gray fog. Everyone had a dazed look on their faces. At this time, Mayan has already put down the arrayed disc in front of the enchantment. Then, according to the order of the 8 trigrams of Qian Kun, she enlaced the crystals into the eye of the array. Using this method to break the array is not like using the Shin musician's skill, Starry Sky Curtain, where one would either succeed or fail, and the result would be clear in an instant. Using an array to break an array required a certain amount of time. Slowly, the energy gathered by one array formation would deplete the energy of another array formation. Finally, it would tear apart. After putting down the crystal, Mu Yan sits down cross-legged. She couldn't do anything about what happened next. All she could do was wait. But I'm hungry after spending the whole day. Maybe I should return to the ghost market first. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, the tip of his nose smelled the fragrance of food. Chapter 3180. Mayan lifted her head and saw that Li Weiran had prepared food that smelled and looked good. He was looking at her with a smile. "Mayan, are you hungry? Look, I've prepared a new dish for you today. It's really delicious." Mayan looked at him suspiciously. "You've been acting strangely lately, haven't you?" Li Weiran tilted his head and revealed an innocent expression. "There's nothing I can do about it. When I first met you, I thought Mayan was a bad woman, so of course I had to be on guard. But the more I interacted with you, the more I was attracted to you. Unknowingly, I started to place you in my heart. For the people I care about, I, Li Weiran, am willing to give up my life, let alone wash my hands and cook soup." Stop, stop, stop. All right, you've won, all right. Mayan was speechless. "I really can't tell when you're telling the truth and when you're lying." The young man in front of her pursed his lips and lowered his head. There was a faint smile on his lips as he picked out the fish and placed it in front of Mayan. The fragrant fish melted in her mouth. It was so delicious that Mayan, who had been starving for 2 days, couldn't help but reveal a satisfied expression. But this kind of delicacy and satisfaction didn't make her relax. Instead, it made her secretly vigilant. That was because Li Weiran was just too mysterious and unpredictable. Furthermore, Mu Yan always felt that there was a strange sense of familiarity to his body. It made her raise her guard a little, but because of this sense of familiarity, most of it instinctively dissipated. "Who are you? What's your purpose in getting close to me?" Mayan asked in the end. Li Weiran lifted his head and the curve of his lips deepened. "Mayan really wants to know. Then I'll tell you." Before he could finish, a trembling voice interrupted the conversation between the two of them. Miss June, may I ask, do you really have a way to break the boundary of the gravel hill and bring us out?" Mayan frowned and looked up. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with a weathered face. She hooked her lips and smiled. "I think you're mistaken about something. I broke the gravel hill boundary because I wanted to get out. I never said I would bring you out. Don't think too highly of yourself." The middle-aged man was stunned and his face turned red. Mu Yan added, "Of course, if the enchantment doesn't automatically repair itself when it breaks, you can follow me out if you want. But once you leave this place, whether you live or die, whether you can recover your strength, or whether you'll be thrown back into this rocky hill once more, all of that has nothing to do with me." This middle-aged man was obviously a cultivator who had been thrown in. At this time, hearing Mu Yan's words, his expression was sluggish, and he couldn't help but chuckle. "That's right. Trash like us, even if we leave Gravel Hill, what can we do? Wasn't that a dead end? Ha! Ha ha ha." The other Shouja that once belonged to Floating Sky Island also showed pained and hopeless expressions. Compared to the natives who grew up in the rocky hill and never knew how vast and terrifying the outside world was, they were much weaker. These practitioners understand the meaning of Mayan's words even more clearly. So what if he left the rocky hill? They were still trash without cultivation, still at the bottom of the food chain. They might be able to survive in the rocky hill, but once they left this place, they would definitely die. Someone couldn't help but sob softly. There were also people who punched the ground in frustration. Chapter 3181. At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. "Miss June, the situation on the floating island is treacherous and the situation is ever-changing. Miss is alone. I'm afraid that your actions will not change. If you don't mind, why not take some subordinates to run errands for you?" Mu Yan turned her head and found that the person who spoke was the drunkard that Rui Nyang pushed over a few days ago. At this time, there was still a wine pot in his arms, but it was obviously empty. On his bony face, a pair of eyes flickering with cold light stares at Mu Yan. Behind Rui Nyang, the dozen or so handicapped men also crawled to catch up. The little monkey, on the other hand, was being led by the butcher. It was awkwardly looking at Mayan with some fear. Even though everyone's focus was on Mu Yan, such a strange group of people still attracted a lot of attention. In particular, some men had already recognized Rui Nyang's identity. At this time, they were pointing at her, revealing a wretched expression. But Rui Nyang didn't care at all. She pushed the drunkard in front of Mu Yan, cupped her hands, and bowed deeply to her. Then, she knelt down and kowtowed to her 3 times. This time, even with Mu Yan's calm and stone-hearted heart, she couldn't eat the food in her hands. She stood up and coughed softly. "I promise to cure your injury. I will not go back on my words." After leaving the gravel hill, the smile on Li Weiran's face disappeared, and his thin lips tightened into a straight line. The eyes under the red silk coldly looked at Rui Nyang. But seeing that Mu Yan really didn't plan to continue eating, he regretfully put away the food on the ground. However, this subtle change was not noticed by Mu Yan or Rui Nyang. Rui Nyang raised her head and interrupted Mu Yan's words. I am grateful to Miss, not for my injury, but for bringing hope to all of us. I kneel here and kowtow to Miss, hoping that Miss can listen to Boss's request. Mu Yan frowned. Butcher continued, Miss June, please believe us. If you bring everyone in the gravel hill, there will only be benefits. Mayan sneers, you want me to believe that these selfish people, who are used to showing off their bravery and ruthlessness, will be used by me? Although Mu Yan's words were unpleasant to hear, everyone in Crushed Stone Hill looked at each other in dismay, unable to refute. Because of the special environment of the gravel hill, these people were more unreasonable and greedy than normal Shuja. In the beginning, in order to get out of the Crushed Stone Hill, in order to survive, they were naturally willing to bow and scrape to Mayan. But what if he regained his freedom and became stronger? How could they be willing to listen to a little girl's orders? It was already good enough that they did not bite back. It was simply a fantasy to expect them to repay their kindness. But now, there was a chance to leave Gravel Hill. Of course, these people couldn't bear to give up. As a result, many of them revealed pleading expressions, Miss June, we are willing to listen to your orders. We only ask that you be merciful and take us with you. Yes, yes. We are willing to be your slaves. If we dare to be ungrateful, let us be struck by lightning. There were even people who swore a deadly oath. But in her previous life, Mayan is used to the fickleness of the world, the fickleness of human nature. He had also stayed in the Cave of 10,000, the true hell. How could he be fooled by this appearance? Don't look at how sincere these people are right now. That's because even if they leave Crushed Stone Hill, they still have no power to fight back. Chapter 3182. But if she really let these selfish and greedy wolves follow her. Later, as long as there's a little bit of temptation, they would eat her up until there's nothing left. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth hooks up into a cold smile. But before she could say the words, I refuse, the butcher smiles confidently. I know what Miss June is worried about. You're just afraid that these things will betray you at the sight of profit. But as long as our boss is here, this will never happen. What do you mean? Rui Nyang stands up and slowly says, because boss is a general. Hearing the two words, battle general, Mu Yan is still confused. Li Weiran, who is behind her, can't help but turn his head to look at the drunkard on the wheelchair. There's a look of interest on his face. And from the crowd in the rocky hill, there are already scattered cries of surprise, General. How is that possible? A general of the floating island is very precious and rare. Even if their hands and feet are broken and they lose all their spiritual power, as long as their consciousness is intact, it's something that any sect or family dreams of. How did they end up in the rocky hill? Only Mu Yan is full of confusion. Damn, what is this general? You guys say it's so powerful, can someone explain it to me? However, no one on the scene noticed Mu Yan's confusion. This was because they naturally thought that apart from the natives of Gravel Mound, there was no one who was born and raised there. As long as they come from the floating island, there's no one who doesn't know what a general is. Except for one person, Li Weiran. So, Mu Yan hasn't finished cursing in her heart. She hears a familiar clear voice in her ear. Mu Yan doesn't know what a general is. Do you want me to explain it to you? If you want, then beg me. As long as Mu Yan begs me, I will definitely tell you everything I know. Mu Yan rolls her eyes and doesn't pay attention to him. Li Weiran's chuckle is heard again. Mu Yan, don't be angry. I'm just teasing you. After all, how can I bear to see you anxious and upset? Mu Yan's mouth twitches. Which eye of yours sees me anxious and upset? Li Weiran's voice continued to ring in his ears. battle general, is an extremely rare and special talent on the floating island. They usually have an incomparably vast sea of consciousness, and unlike the exclusive nature of the sea of consciousness of other cultivators, the sea of consciousness of a battle general is usually uniquely inclusive and extensible. In other words, the sea of consciousness of all battle generals can communicate with the consciousness of other cultivators and even ordinary martial artists. Mayan stares blankly, a rare look of astonishment appearing on her usually calm and collected face. Able to communicate with the consciousness of others. A person with such talent would be a heaven-defying existence on the battlefield of thousands of soldiers and horses. Li Weiran chuckled. But this isn't the scariest part about being a general. The cultivators on the floating island, except for those cultivators who accidentally failed to ascend, the other natives naturally had a secret door in their blood. Normally, this secret door doesn't have much to do with anything, but once a high-level battle general spreads out their divine sense and enters through that secret door, they can control these people's actions, causing their strength to increase in a short period of time, pouring in all their battle awareness, and even making them live and die as they please. Mu Yen sucked in a breath of cold air. If that's the case, a battle general isn't just powerful, it's simply a heaven-defying existence. Chapter 3183. Li Weiran's voice carried a hint of teasing this time. Mu Yen, where did you live in the past? Could it be that the people around you are all country bumpkins who haven't seen the world? Just a few generals and you're so shocked. In reality, what I said can be done by generals, but there are many restrictions. On the floating island, the generals are divided into Army General, Cloud General, Imperial General, and Divine General. Army General can at most control mortals below the fasting stage, and at most 100 people at a time. Cloud General can control cultivators below the Aurus core stage, but at most 1,000 people at a time. Above, Imperial General, the power of the general will have a qualitative leap. Imperial General can control cultivators below the tribulation stage, and they can control at least 10,000 people at a time. As for Divine General, they can control all cultivators below their level of cultivation, and the wider the sea of consciousness, the larger the number of troops they can control. There is no limit, and there is no end to it. It can be said to be a true weapon of war. But until now, most of the generals that appeared on the floating island are only at the level of Army General. Occasionally, there are a few Cloud Generals who are carefully protected by the big families and sections. As for Imperial General and Divine General, they only listen to the Lan family empire. Li Weiran's unceasing voice answered many of Mu Yan's doubts. But her thoughts suddenly stopped. That's not right. This is not like Li Weiran's style at all. Turning to look, Mu Yan was instantly angered. It turned out that Li Weiran had taken the opportunity when she wasn't paying attention to take out an ancient book and read it out loud. This little pervert doesn't understand the system of generals on the floating island at all, and he's making a last-minute effort to act like a know-it-all in front of her. She doesn't know how this little pervert can recognize the words on the ancient book with the red silk covering his eyes. Li Weiran was reading excitedly to the ancient book when he suddenly saw a slender, white, jade-like hand pressing on his page. The youth raised his head and met Mu Yan's cold smile. His voice couldn't help but pause. A country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world. You don't even know about a few generals? Hee hee. Li Weiran let out an innocent smile. With a wave of his hand, he threw the ancient book out. The book in the air immediately combusted without any fire and disappeared completely. Not even a speck of dust was left. Mu Yan, what are you saying? Why don't I understand? You said I was mocking you. How was this possible? I'm loyal to you, Mu Yan, and the sun and moon can bear witness. I'm definitely not the one who ridiculed you, or you've misheard. Mu Yan resists the urge to chop him up. She ignores him and turns to look at the drunkard in the wheelchair. Who are you? If he's a champion, why would he be in the shattered rock hill? The drunkard sees that Mu Yan has been ignoring him, but he is not anxious at all. He just quietly waits. It wasn't until he heard Mu Yan's question that he chuckled and said, "The past cannot be recalled. What's the point of knowing such a boring thing as a name? If Miss doesn't mind, you can call me Wine Madman in the future." Mu Yan narrowed her eyes. What is your champion rank? Drunkard lowered his eyes. He can control the level of everyone in crushed stone. Hiss dash. The sound of people sucking in a breath of cold air can be heard. How arrogant. Controlling everyone in crushed stone. Does he think he's a king general? Chapter 3184. Although the people in the gravel mound are mortals who can't cultivate, there are tens of thousands of them. He actually said that he can control them. What a joke. The drunkard raises his head and looks at Mayan. Miss June, are you willing to believe me? Mayan doesn't comment. How can you prove that you have the strength of a imperial general? As they speak, there's a loud bang not far away. Immediately after, they see a big hole break open in the thick fog. A whistling gale that can blow a person away, wrapping in thick spiritual power, surges in from the hole. The people who were just discussing the topic of battle generals can't help but stare blankly at the hole. Some people have lifeless faces. Some people have tears of disbelief in their eyes. The enchantment is broken. Oh my God, am I dreaming? Can I really get out of the gravel mound? But, what can I do even if I get out? I've long been a cripple without any cultivation. Pain, pleading, struggling, despair, everything converges into a hellish torment. Then, as the spiritual power pouring in becomes stronger and stronger, everyone feels a powerful energy fluctuation. Everyone can't help but turn their eyes to Mayan. She's absorbing spiritual power. The female devil's cultivation really hasn't been abolished. But how is that possible? If her cultivation hasn't been abolished, why would she be thrown into the gravel mound? The people below are discussing it, but Mayan doesn't take it to heart at all. Her dantian, her meridians, every pore of her body is frantically absorbing the surging spiritual power between heaven and earth. Her dried-up dantian is filled, and Qi Huang's familiar voice rings in her ears once again. The Tian Mo Qin in her hands becomes like her torso, and she can move it like an arm, inseparable. The powerful power that can make her feel at ease is returning little by little. This feeling is really great. Mayan takes a deep breath, turns around, and grabs the little chick that's at the entrance of the fog cave, making a wah-wah-wah sound. She turns around and walks out of the gravel mound. Before she left, she placed one of the storage rings filled with ordinary cloud bones and cloud beast hides on the ground. She also throws a bottle of elixirs to Ruin Yang. The medicine inside can cure your injuries. Whether it's in the gravel mound or leaving here, live well. Miss June. Ruin Yang caught the medicine and called out anxiously, You don't intend to agree to boss's request? Mu Yan turns around and looks at her with a smile that isn't a smile. There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. You've exposed your rare identities as champions and said that you'll help me control the people in crushed rock, but you've never said what you want. Usually, in such a situation, it was either the Virgin Mary who didn't forget to repay her kindness, or it was because she was asking for too much and was in great danger. We met by chance. Why should I get involved in this vortex for no reason? When the drunkard heard this, he raised his head for the first time and looked at her deeply. That pair of deep, bloodshot eyes were probing, but more than that, there was an uncontrollable pain and desire hidden deep within. This person looked frivolous and crazy, but he definitely had a blood feud. Mayan thinks so. But what does this have to do with me? Thump. When Mu Yan is about to turn around and leave again, Rui Nyang suddenly fell to her knees and kowtowed heavily towards her. Miss June, I beg you. Please. Chapter 3185. Those disabled strong men were kneeling, and now they were desperately kowtowing. Because their spiritual meridians and dantian had long been destroyed, their foreheads hit the hard rocks and bones, and blood gushed out, but they didn't seem to feel it at all. Rui Nyang and the butcher all had a hunch. The girl in front of them must be the turning point they had been waiting for, and also their only hope for revenge. On the contrary, if they let her go, even if they left the gravel hill, they would definitely be discovered, and eventually die without a burial place. The drunkard on the wheelchair quietly looked at Rui Nyang and the butcher kneeling on the ground, and then struggled to support himself with his elbow on the wheelchair armrest, forcing himself to stand up. But the tendons in his hands and feet were destroyed, and standing up like this would only result in him falling to the ground awkwardly. Boss! Rui Nyang screamed and rushed over to help him up, her eyes full of tears of despair. When the little monkey saw his mother and uncle like this, he suddenly bent his knees and knelt down as well. A pair of black and white eyes were full of tears, looking straight at Mu Yan, and choked, Are you unwilling to help my mother because I lied to you? Then I'll apologize to you, okay? I'll give you all the money I earned. I can also work like a horse for you, please help my mother. Mu Yan looked at the little child kneeling in front of her, and her heart suddenly softened. But thinking of how this kid deceived her, she expressionlessly didn't move. The little monkey cried as he walked forward on his knees. He took out the treasures he once cherished from his pocket. These are all for you, and this dagger, my mother said that my grandfather left it to her. She wanted to give it to you, but I couldn't bear to part with it, so I secretly hid it. Now I'll give it to you, okay? Before Mu Yan had time to speak, a dagger had already been stuffed into her hand. She could recognize that this was the gift that Rui Nyang wanted to give her when she asked her to take the little monkey away. Mu Yan was about to return the dagger when she suddenly stopped, and her eyes suddenly widened. Her fingertips gently stroked the scabbard, and a purple flame was faintly discernible. Purple apex fire. This was a dagger that contained the purple apex fire. Mu Yan suddenly looked up at Rui Nyang, and her voice almost trembled. What are your and your son's names? Full name. Rui Nyang stared blankly for a long time before replying. My name is Shi Shinrui, everyone calls me Rui Nyang. My son took my surname, and his name is Shi Shaoyi. His nickname is Little Monkey. Shi Shinrui. Shi Shaoyi. His surname was Shi. In Mu Yan's mind, she vaguely heard Slythorn's voice, Purple Apex Fire. You are Shi Yuanqing. Shi Yuanqing, you're still alive. The fingers that are holding the dagger suddenly tighten. Mayan forces herself to restrain her hand from trembling. A woman with the same surname as his master. In his hand was a dagger that contained the same purple apex fire as his master. But how could there be such a coincidence in this world? She landed on the rocky hill of the floating island, and coincidentally found her master's descendant here. Mu Yan's gaze then turned towards the drunkard and the butcher. If Rui Nyang was master's daughter, then who were these people? Would it be related to Shao Qi and eldest senior brother? But anyway, he couldn't just sit back and watch. Mu Yan couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Now, she seriously suspected that she had the unfortunate constitution of even if you don't cause trouble, trouble will automatically find you. Chapter 3186. Rui Nyang asked apprehensively, Miss June, is there a problem with my name? Mu Yan takes a deep breath and says in a deep voice, I agree to your request. Rui Nyang could hardly believe her ears. Didn't he reject her without any hesitation? Why did he suddenly agree after asking for her name? Rui Nyang still wants to ask something, but she sees Mu Yen stretch out her hand and a small red bird appears in front of her. Wow, pretty sister. Chiu can finally come out, I'm so happy. Little Phoenix intimately rubbed her face and chattered non-stop. Mu Yen stayed in this gravel hill for nearly a month and couldn't see Chi Huang and Little Phoenix. She missed them very much. At this moment, she couldn't help but stroke its little red head. Chiu, can you do me a favor? Little Phoenix immediately nodded excitedly. Good. Pretty sister, tell me, Chiu will definitely do it well. Mu Yen points to everyone in front of her. I'll leave the gravel hill for a while, you look after them for me. Little Phoenix blinked his eyes. Look well. Are you telling them to stay put and not move? Maya nods. If you want to leave, do as you please, but if you want to take the opportunity to cause trouble, vainly attempt to harm others, or secretly leave through the enchantment without my permission, send them a fireball, don't be polite. Before Little Phoenix could speak, someone in the crowd shouted in dissatisfaction, why? Didn't you say that it was up to us whether we wanted to go out or not? Our legs belong to us. What right do you have to interfere? Mu Yen sneered, if I leave the gravel hill alone, of course you can do whatever you want. But if I were to leave with a large group of people, wouldn't I become the target of all the cultivators on the floating island if news of this leaks out? So, from now on, you can either scram back to Crushed Stone Hill and continue hiding. Either you agree to be my errand boy, and I'll bring you out after I've investigated the situation outside. Everyone looked at each other. Some felt relieved, while others felt indignant. However, they did not dare to resist and could only whisper, isn't it too overbearing? Mu Yen couldn't help but laugh, overbearing. You want to talk about being domineering in this gravel hill where the strong prey on the weak? I was the one who broke the barrier around Gravel Mound. I was willing to let you out because of my kindness, but not letting you out is my right. Or do you think that I'm the merciful Virgin Mary who has descended upon this rocky hill to not only save you from your suffering but also clean up after you? Chirp. As if to match Mayan's overbearing declaration, Little Phoenix spits out a fireball. This fireball was extremely small, and it floated down in front of the man who had just muttered. The man's face was originally filled with disdain. Who knew that the fireball would suddenly explode, and with his keen senses honed from the dangerous environment of the gravel hill, he dodged at the last moment. However, he still felt a sharp pain in his arm. When he looked down, his face turned pale with fright. The pile of bones and stones on the ground had been completely incinerated. This fireball was obviously not aimed at him, otherwise, he would have been burnt to a crisp. Leaving Little Phoenix to keep watch here, Mu Yen glanced at Rui Nyang, then turned and walked towards the entrance of the cave. As time passed, the hole in the thick fog became smaller and smaller. Obviously, Mu Yen did not really destroy the barrier of the gravel mound, and this barrier still had a self-repairing function. If Mu Yen left and never came back, they would be trapped in the gravel mound forever. Chapter 3187. Rui Nyang anxiously steps forward, wanting to say something but is stopped by the drunkard. Since we have chosen to believe in Miss June, we must believe in her till the end. Rui Nyang does not stop him. But another person appears in front of Mu Yen. Li Weiran. It was unknown when the blindfolded youth had put on his snow-white clothes again. His lips are red and his teeth are white, clear and flawless. Mu Yen's heart thumps. What does this little pervert want to do? Mu Yen, let's not leave the gravel mound, okay? Look at how interesting this place is, the people are simple, the cloud beasts are cute, the scenery is beautiful, and there are even idiots jumping out to play with us from time to time. Mu Yan's mouth twitches. Since you like it so much, you can stay here. But, I want Mu Yan to stay with me. The youngster's voice is soft and hoarse, with a trace of childlike innocence. Mu Yan looks at him quietly for a moment, then says in a low voice, "But I refuse." After saying that, she doesn't wait for Li Weiran's reaction and walks into the fog. The youngster's lips are bright red, and after a long silence, he chuckles. His slender fingers gently brush his thin lips, and after a long time, he murmurs 3 words, "Jun Mu Yan," like a raving, like a lover's intimate whisper, and like the distant call of the Grim Reaper. Mu Yan didn't expect that she would be surrounded as soon as she left the gravel mound, before she could see what kind of place the floating island was. When I received the news, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't expect that the boundary of the gravel mound would really be broken. The one speaking is a white beardless old man with a face full of wrinkles. His eyes are fixed on the hole in the middle of the fog, and his eyes are full of disbelief and shock. "Master, when the Luoyun sect gave us this large area, their only requirement was that we must guard the gravel mound well, and not allow any refugees or sinners to come out. Now that the boundary of the gravel mound has been broken, and there are people coming out, if the Luoyun sect knows, I'm afraid that we will all be slaughtered." Hearing the subordinate's words, the old man's face shows fear. He suddenly looks at Mu Yan, gritting his teeth. "You broke the boundary of the gravel mound? Who are you?" However, Mu Yan looked at the somewhat familiar clothes on their bodies and narrowed his eyes. "You guys are from the mountain-splitting sect?" How did she know we were from the mountain-splitting sect? This woman should be a soul cultivator who was thrown into Crushed Stone Hill, right? But everyone who enters Crushed Stone Mound should be trash without any cultivation. How can her aura be so strong? There are also people who yell at Mayan, "Which sect did you come from before?" Don't tell me they don't know that as long as a soul cultivator is thrown into Crushed Rock Mound, no matter how talented they were before or how illustrious their family background is, they must accept their fate and can't leave for the rest of their lives. Otherwise, all of you will become the common enemy of the 3 sects, 6 clans, and 8 sects. From then on, even if all of you are still alive, you will be like a rat on the street, and you will never have a day of peace. The Mountain Split sect master also calmed down at this moment. Taking a deep breath, he stared at Mu Yan with his hearty eyes. "To be able to reach the 8th rank of the mortal cultivation realm at such a young age, you do have some talent. It's no wonder that you're unwilling to stay in the shattered rock hill for the rest of your life. But girl, I advise you, if you want to live well and live for a long time, you'd better obediently return to the gravel mound. With your ability, even if you can't use spiritual power inside, you're still invincible. Isn't it good to be a tyrant inside, and dream of imperial power?" Chapter 3188. Mayan sneers. "I have always politely declined deceiving myself and others. What's more, how can a mere gravel hill satisfy my appetite? If I want to dominate, I need the entire floating island to be worthy of it." Hiss. Everyone from the Mountain Split sect sucked in a breath of cold air. Where did this little girl come from? How dare she speak so arrogantly? Truly overestimating the immensity of heaven and earth. I think this matter is very easy to solve. The Gravel Hills enchantment is already repairing itself, and only this little girl has come out. As long as we kill her, everything will naturally return to normal. The old man coldly glanced at Mu Yan. "This old man saw that you are young, so I gave you a way out. Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame us for being impolite. Set up the formation." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone from the Mountain Split sect suddenly dispersed. Immediately after, everyone's eyes lit up. Powerful spiritual power surged in the air. Then, something miraculous happened. A ferocious beast appeared beside every mountain-splitting sect disciple. These ferocious beasts were all formed from pure energy. However, it opened its bloody mouth and roared like a real beast. The powerful aura emanating from their bodies was almost on par with the cultivators around them. Summoned beast. Mu Yan's mind instantly remembers what Qi Huang had said. The floating island was created by a powerful summoner who defied the natural order of the world. Mu Yan couldn't help but be speechless, because this was a kingdom created by the summoners. So most of the practitioners inside were summoners. However, when the Mountain Split sect master summoned an enormous golden-furred lion, Mu Yan's expression became incomparably solemn. She did not know what the old man meant by 9 mortal cultivation stages. However, the people present all had extremely high cultivation bases. The white-faced old man, who was also the head of the mountain-splitting sect, was at least at the peak of the tribulation passing stage, or even higher. That's because when the spirit gathers in his eyes, Mayan can see a piece of bone at the back of his neck faintly glowing, absorbing the immortal qi of heaven and earth, which is completely different from spiritual qi. In other words, this elder has already forged the immortal bone. Mu Yan had forged quite a few immortal bones and could easily absorb the spiritual qi and immortal qi of heaven and earth. However, the time she took to transcend the tribulation was too short. He didn't even have the time to master some of the more powerful divine abilities and sword techniques. As for how to use immortal energy, he was a complete rookie. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lost so badly in his battle with Ning Su. At this moment, other than the mountain-splitting sect leader who had already forged the immortal bone, there was no one else in the mountain-splitting sect. There were also a dozen cultivators who had reached the tribulation passing stage like her. Not to mention these powerful summoned beasts. Mu Yan exhaled softly. I'm afraid she has a tough battle to fight. However, her lips quickly curled into a disdainful smile. With a flick of her wrist, the Tian Mo Qin appears in her hand. It was just a battle. Did they really think that she was afraid? He placed his fingertips on the zither and was about to start playing. Suddenly, a streak of white light shot towards Qin. Immediately after, Mu Yan felt a strong force coming towards her. The Tian Mo Qin in his hand unexpectedly flies out. Mayan is startled and abruptly looks up. On a hill not far away, a young man dressed in white with red silk over his eyes stood there quietly. The cold evening wind made his clothes and hair flutter in the wind. The Tian Mo Qin that was originally in his hand slowly descends in front of him. Mu Yan's heart sank bit by bit. Li Weiran, it was you who informed the mountain-splitting sect to block the exit. Chapter 3189. What Mu Yan said wasn't a question, but a resolute and decisive affirmation. The youth on the hill slowly turns his head. The pair of eyes under the red silk seems to be looking at her, but also as if he wasn't looking at anything. His thin lips curve up. Jun Mu Yan, I've played with you in the gravel hill for so long that I almost forgot that I'm here to kill you. Just now, why didn't you promise me to stay in the gravel hill? Maybe you could live a little longer this way. The youth's slender fingers pluck the Tian Mo Qin. The Tian Mo Qin doesn't give him any response, only making unpleasant noises. Li Weiran chuckles. But, it seems that I still can't steel my heart to kill you with my own hands, Mu Yan. So, I can only confiscate your most important weapon and let these people from Mountain Split Sect do it for me. Li Weiran secretly transmits the last sentence to her ears. But, Mu Yan, don't worry. You're the most interesting woman I've ever met in my life. After these filthy trash kill you, I'll definitely cut them into 8 pieces to avenge you. From now on, I'll always keep a place for you in my heart. Mu Yan, are you happy? Happy your sister, happy. Mu Yan coldly looks at this dead pervert, not saying anything. When she first met Li Weiran, she was indeed on guard and vigilant. But slowly, Li Weiran no longer showed any signs of aggression. And that faintly discernible familiar aura on his body made Mu Yan unconsciously relax her vigilance. She had really forgotten that this young man had been full of malice towards her from the very beginning. Now that there's a wolf in front and a tiger behind, she's afraid that she'll be in danger. Damn, Jun Mu Yan. Where did you provoke this pretty boy from? Qi Huang's furious voice resounded in her ears. You idiot woman, this lord only didn't look after you for a month, and you're already outside flirting with bees and butterflies. This pretty boy can't even compare to that trash, Luo Yunxiao. What do you see in him? Mu Yan, Qi Xiaohuang, I beg you, ancestor, to spare me. Now that my life is at stake, you're actually only concerned about whether I provoked a pretty boy or not. Can you get the Tian Mo Qin back for me? Qi Huang coldly snorts, of course I can. Hey! Damn! Who was this kid? Why is the connection between Shenzun and the Tian Mo Qin's divine sense cut off? Mu Yan's heart thumps, her brows tightly knit together. As Qi Huang spoke, the people from the mountain-splitting sect and their summoned beasts had already approached aggressively. Now that she doesn't have the Tian Mo Qin and Li Weiran is eyeing her like a tiger watching its prey. It could be said to be a hopeless situation of certain death. But in such a hopeless situation, Mayan's unruly nature is aroused from the bottom of her heart. She laughed coldly, and her gaze swept past everyone in the mountain-split sect, finally landing on the white-clothed youth. You want me to die? Why don't we all perish together? As soon as he finished speaking, the crystal-clear 7 absolute sword slowly appeared. Light flowed on the sword. Between heaven and earth, specks of light, like fireflies, gathered toward the 7 absolute sword. Gradually, they converged into a magnificent meandering galaxy. Li Weiran's back suddenly straightened, and the contented expression on his face froze. Even with his eyes covered, one could see how shocked he was. He widened his eyes like that, through the blood-like red silk. Looking at the isolated and helpless girl below, he lightly brandished the 7 absolute sword in his hand. Chapter 3190. 1 second. Remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. Boom! A huge ravine was directly split open on the ground. The summoned beast that was fiercely pouncing towards Mayan vaporized in a flash, disappearing without a trace. In the sky, purple-gold thunderclouds gradually gathered at an unknown time, hanging high above the girl's head, making a crackling sound. Li Weiran stood there blankly for a long time, before suddenly muttering, "The power of law. It's actually the power of the 5 elements. A crossing tribulation cultivator using the power of law on the floating island. Jun Mayan, just how many more surprises can you give me?" Compared to Li Weiran's shock, the people of Mountain Split Sect only felt their blood run cold. What about their summoned beast? Why did that girl disappear with just a light swing of her sword? The Mountain Split Sect's head looked at Mayan with eyes full of shock. You, just who are you? What remarkable ability did you use just now? The girl in front of him didn't answer. A pair of inky black eyes that were bottomless, slowly dyed with a trace of bright red. The spiritual power of heaven and earth unconsciously gathered around her. It curled her long hair, spreading out in the air like ink. At this very moment, even with the mask covering her, the girl's entire body revealed a strange and flirtatious temperament. Then, under the frightened and despairing gazes of everyone in Mountain Split Sect, 7 absolute swords made a second slash. Jun Mayan, calm down. You can't use the power of law anymore. Damn it. I shouldn't have taught you to use the power of law at the beginning. She heard Qi Huang's anxious shouts. Mayan could also feel that something was wrong with her body. Every inch of the meridians in her body was burning. There seemed to be countless thorns pulling at her dantian and her heart. Even the soul in her body was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. And her body was already completely out of control. Her consciousness was clearly clear, and she could even hear Qi Huang's curses and the indistinct sound of thunder in the sky. But her hands and feet seemed to have their own consciousness, unscrupulously making a second slash towards the people of Mountain Split Sect. Whoosh! Wherever the sword aura went, the ground was once again split into two halves. The thick and clear spiritual power that was originally floating in the air had all turned into murderous sharp blades at this moment. It swept towards everyone in Mountain Split Sect. Swish, swish, swish. Blood gushed from their necks. One by one, the bodies fell to the ground, dying with everlasting regret. The last thing the mountain-splitting sect leaders saw was a headless body that was continuously spurting out fresh blood from the severed neck. And he only recognized it a moment before he lost consciousness. It was his headless body. The mountain-splitting sect was annihilated, not even a single cultivator above the tribulation passing stage was left behind. Even though there were still some disciples left in the sect. This third-rate sect would forever be buried in the long river of history. And on the floating island, only the mountain-splitting sect was guarding the crushed stone hill. For a long time after that, no one knew that the boundary of crushed stone hill had been broken. The beasts locked inside were about to awaken and turn the world upside down. But at this moment, the culprit who was about to cause this upheaval was standing stiffly on the spot with a pale face and a head full of cold sweat. The clouds in the sky grew thicker and thicker, turning the area into a pitch-black night. From time to time, purplish gold lightning would flash in the thick clouds, emitting crackling sounds. It was as if a storm of lightning was brewing. Jun Mayan entered the space of the Tian Mo Qin. Qi Huang shouted anxiously, "You've triggered the second heavenly punishment in such a short period of time. This time, the lightning tribulation will be more than 10 times stronger than the previous one. You definitely won't be able to survive it. Hurry up and come in, I'll protect you." Chapter 3191. At this time, Mu Yan doesn't want to be brave, she also wants to listen to Qi Huang enter the Tian Mo Qin space. However, whether it's her body or consciousness, she can't control it at all. The tearing pain in her body caused the veins on her forehead to throb. Boom! The heavenly thunder that has been brewing in the air for a long time finally falls. Jun Mu Yan. Qi Huang roars, no longer hiding his breath, and is about to rush out of the Tian Mo Qin space. However, at this moment, a pure white figure streaks through the air and lands in front of Mu Yan. The red silk covering her eyes was as beautiful and dazzling as blood. Mu Yan's eyes widened slightly. It's Li Weiran. What is he doing here? In the next moment, the youth raises his slender hand and covers her head, just like how he usually covers her from the wind and sand of Mount Yunluo. A dazzling white light, accompanied by a deafening thunder, explodes above her head. Mu Yan only feels a violent impact on her head, and the ugly mask on her face shatters into two halves, falling to the ground. Her forehead is cut by the aftermath, and beads of blood trickle down the bridge of her nose. The heavenly thunder that is 10 times stronger than the one in the Shuzhen continent fell, and she actually only suffered such a small injury. Mu Yan suddenly looks up. She sees that the hand that Li Weiran used to protect her head is already badly mutilated, and the eerie white bones can be seen. Mu Yan's first reaction is that this little pervert has gone crazy. He was clearly the one who wanted to kill her, and he's also the one who took her Tian Mo Qin. Why did he come to take the heavenly thunder for her now? Mu Yan looks up and finds that Li Weiran's expression is even more shocked than hers. He tilts his head slightly, looking at her in confusion, and then at his hand that has been burned full of holes by the heavenly thunder. He doesn't seem to understand why he would help Mu Yen block the heavenly thunder. Li Weiran looks down at her in a daze. The girl in front of him is pale, her hair is messy, and her face is covered in sweat. But even if she has fallen into such a difficult and hopeless situation. But it couldn't hide her gorgeous face and her blazing, untamed peach blossom eyes that would never be tamed. Mu Yen looks up at him, her eyes filled with doubt and vigilance. Li Weiran, what do you want? The girl's voice was hoarse from the pain, and it was almost inaudible in the roar of thunder. But Li Weiran looked as if he was shocked. He abruptly turned around and disappeared. Li Weiran. Mayan yells, "Give me back my zither." As soon as her voice falls, the Tian Mo Chin flies over from afar and falls into her arms. Mu Yen didn't have the time to think about what this pervert Li Weiran was thinking. But thanks to him, he finally regained control of his originally immobile body. His fingers were still numb from the pain, and his palms were covered in layers of sticky cold sweat. But Mu Yen plucked the strings without hesitation and played a smooth melody. Qi Huang, Mayan, quickly enter the Tian Mo Chin space. No. Mayan plays while answering Qi Huang's question. The Tian Mo Chin is still not in its complete form. If the heavenly punishment thunder falls on the Tian Mo Chin, it will be destroyed, and the Tian Mo Chin space will also disappear, right? Qi Huang clenches his teeth. Not having the Tian Mo Chin is still better than not having a life. Mu Yen smiles absent-mindedly. I can live without the Tian Mo Chin, but Qi Huang, what about you? Without the Tian Mo Chin, without the Tian Mo Chin space, can you still live? Chapter 3192. 1 second to remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. After saying that, Mayan no longer cared about Qi Huang's reaction. Her hand suddenly sped up. Divine Hand weaves the heavens, activated. 4th layer, Starry Domain, activated. Boom! The second lightning struck. Li Weiran didn't know how long he had been running for before he stopped. His expression was still a little perplexed. Slightly tilting his head to look at his bloody hand, he murmured, "Why did I save her? Let her die under the lightning, then watch Di Mingju suffer. Isn't that the happiest thing for me?" Li Weiran frowned in distress. He wondered if there was something wrong with his brain. Why would he do something that went against his will? Didn't he want to see Di Mingju suffer? No, he wanted to. Li Weiran's lips slowly hooked up, revealing a cold and bloodthirsty smile. Even in his dreams, he wanted Di Mingju to fall into an endless hell. Torment, pain, and struggle. He wanted to experience all the suffering he had experienced, never to be reincarnated. But since his wish hadn't changed, why would he be reluctant to let Mayan die? She was clearly the lover that Di Mingju was crazily infatuated with according to his sister. If she died, how wonderful would Di Mingju's expression be? Boom! Suddenly, thunder boomed in the distance. In this mountain area, countless birds and beasts were alarmed. Forced by the power of the lightning, they fled in fear. Li Weiran looked towards the direction of the dark clouds. Suddenly, he flipped his wrist, and a yellowish-brown bug appeared in his palm. I don't like things that are beyond my control, and I won't allow anyone to ruin my plans. So Mayan, you'd better, go die. Li Weiran raised his hand and threw the bug into the air. In a split second, the bug in the sky began to split up. From 1 to 2, 2 to 4, finally, it became a densely packed group. This bug was called Bloodthirsty Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt meant that this bug wasn't afraid of any kind of lightning in the world. Even if it was lightning, they could easily devour it. But the food that bloodthirsty thunderbolt liked wasn't lightning or spiritual power, but living flesh and blood. The more lightning they devoured, the more powerful it was, and the stronger their thirst for flesh and blood. Once they were not satisfied, they would go crazy and eventually explode and die. Li Weiran looked at the bloodthirsty thunderlight flying towards Mayan and muttered, "Even if there's lightning, there's no guarantee that you'll die. But with the bloodthirsty thunderlight, it's different. June Mayan, you won't be able to escape even if you grow wings." An inexplicable dull pain came from his heart. Li Weiran frowns uncomfortably, continuing, "Wait until I show Di Mingju your body riddled with holes. His pained expression will definitely be very interesting." The corners of the youth's lips curled up. He wanted to smile, but in an instant, his lips tightened again. He abruptly turned around and headed away from the lightning. However, he couldn't help but recall the events of the past month, as well as that clear and melodious voice. "Go ahead and use the poison. If I get poisoned to death, it's my loss. But the premise is that you have to guarantee that our 3 meals are delicious. How about it? June Mayan, admit it. You just can't bear to see me being defiled. You say you've seen all the flowers in the world. Then this dark cloud spirit flower, have you seen it before? Your favorite dark cloud spirit flower, are you sure you don't want to see it before you dig your eyes out?" Li Weiran's footsteps suddenly stopped, his hands tightly clenched into fists. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 3193. 1 second to remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. June Mayan should die. But if she dies, no one will be able to grow the dark cloud's spirit flower. No one will be able to eat his cooking with a satisfied face. No one will come to protect him even though they know he will be unscathed. Boom! At the end of the sky, the third lightning strikes, accompanied by the mourning of the earth and the shaking of the mountains and rivers. Under such a terrible lightning strike, and with the bloodthirsty thunder rainbow by his side, it's impossible to survive. Li Weiran closes his eyes, the gentle and shy smile on his face gradually distorting into a fierce and ruthless madness. The next moment, he suddenly turns around and steps in the direction of the lightning strike, disappearing in an instant. Bang! The sound wall, created by the divine hands weave the sky, shatters. Mayan's knees soften and she falls forward. She quickly summons the 7 absolute swords and stabs them into the ground, stabilizing her body. But she can't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. June Mayan, how are you? Mayan wipes the blood from the corner of her mouth. I won't die. Isn't it just a lightning strike? Even if it's 10 times more powerful than before, she still withstood the third one. But it really hurts too much. Her bones and soul feel like they're about to be smashed by lightning. She's already exhausted all the spiritual power in her body, and even her internal force and immortal chi are almost depleted. She barely withstood 2 strikes. The third, or in other words, the fourth will be even stronger if Li Weiran takes it for her. Can she really withstand it? Qi Huang anxiously says, "There's no one here, let me come out. It's just a lightning strike, I'll take it for you." Mayan shakes her head. In theory, the floating island is closer to the Shushan continent. Once your aura is leaked, it will be discovered very quickly. Qi Huang, you said that no matter what, you can't let anyone discover your existence, unless she becomes strong enough to protect Qi Huang and everyone around him. Qi Huang's voice stagnates, unable to say a word for a long time. A pair of gorgeous phoenix eyes flicker, as if dyed crimson, as if stained with sparkling water droplets. Mu Yen stood up shakily with the support of the 7 absolute sword and teased, "I'm going to take the third heavenly thunder." Qi Xiao Huang, take a good look at my heroic appearance. You're not allowed to hide in a corner and cry. Scram. Jun Mayan, do you want to die? This sage is a venerable ancient artifact spirit, who would cry. Qi Huang's voice is still a little hoarse, but he still subconsciously curses. Mu Yan smiles. It's good that Qi Xiao Huang can still scold people. Looking up at the thick dark clouds flickering with purple gold light in the sky, Mu Yan clenched the 7 absolute sword in her hand. In the cultivation continent, she had fought many fierce battles. Even though her body was so weak, she was still able to withstand several heavenly tribulations. Not to mention now. Even if it was 10 times stronger, she would still be able to hold on. Definitely. The Tian Mo Qin floats in the air, its strings fluttering in the wind, making whimpering sounds. Layers of phantom activated. Another Mayan's figure appears in front of the Tian Mo Qin, 10 fingers plucking the strings. The sound barrier created by divine hands weave appeared once again, protecting her within it. 7 supreme swords condensed starlight and slowly pointed to the sky. Mu Yan has made all the preparations, waiting for the 4th heavenly tribulation to descend. However, at this moment, she hears a buzzing sound in her ears. Mu Yan turns her head to look and sees a yellowish-brown smoke whizzing towards her at a very fast speed. What's that? This thought just flashes through Mu Yan's mind, and the yellowish-brown smoke has already wrapped her up in an instant. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 3194. 1 second to remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. Rumble. The 4th Thunder Tribulation falls. Mayan doesn't have time to operate her spiritual power, and she feels a sharp pain assaulting her body. It's as if countless insects are biting her flesh and skin. No, it's not as if. This yellowish-brown mist is composed of countless small insects. And these small insects are densely packed on her body at this time, gnawing at her flesh. Sharp pain comes from every inch of her skin. A fire soars from Mayan's body, burning the insects on the surface of her body. But soon, countless insects swarmed over. What is this? Cold sweat drips from Mayan's forehead from the pain, but she doesn't have the strength to burn a second fire. Because the 4th heaven tribulation has come. The sharp pain disperses her originally condensed divine sense, and the sound wall created by the divine hands weave the heavens, doesn't even block for a moment before it shatters with a loud bang. Jun Mayan. She hears Qi Huang's heart-wrenching cry. The Tool Spirit, who has always been arrogant, desperately wants to rush out to block the heaven tribulation for her, even if it's a disaster waiting for him. But this madness comes to an abrupt end. Because Qi Huang feels a familiar aura. He looks up in a daze, only to see a tall figure slowly appear in the void, pulling the already scarred girl into his arms. Faint blue flames emit from the man's body, silently sweeping through the densely packed, bloodthirsty thunderlight. In the blink of an eye, those cruel and tyrannical bugs were burnt to a crisp. Di Mingju. Yes, only this man can appear at a critical moment, and protect Jun Mayan even if the mountains collapse and the earth split. Qi Huang stares at the 2 embracing figures in a daze. Suddenly, he closes his eyes and falls heavily on the grass in the space. In that split second just now, he really thought that Jun Mayan would die, and his heart feels like it's being pulled tight and suffocated. Now, it's very good. Ignoring the sourness and pain in his heart, Qi Huang smiles like a child. A scourge lasts for 1,000 years. Jun Mayan, since you're called a female devil, you must be happy for a long time. Mayan thinks that she's going to die this time. However, all of a sudden, the void spirit ring emitted a scorching heat. Then, his body, which was in so much pain that it almost collapsed, was pulled into a familiar embrace. A clear and cold breath filled the tip of his nose. Mu Yen suddenly feels that her nose is a little sour, and her eyes are wet and hot. She tried to hold it in for a long time, but tears still fell from her eyes. Di Mingju. When she softly calls out this name, she doesn't know what kind of longing, grievance, and love it's brimming with. Di Mingju abruptly tightens his grip on her, his strength almost breaking her bones. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down, and in the end, he could only spit out 2 words, Mayan. All the fear, worry, and fear had turned into heartache at this moment. Di Mingju can't even say a word of reproach to her for putting him in danger. He just wanted to hug the girl tightly and feel that she was still alive and by his side. Mu Yen reaches out and hugs the man back, placing all her weight on him. After parting in Fusang City, she had experienced so many trials and tribulations, life and death parting. Even when she was besieged on all sides, at the end of her rope, she still straightened her spine, not revealing the slightest trace of weakness or exhaustion. But at this very moment, she doesn't even raise her head to look at Di Mingju's face. She only feels the familiar embrace. Tears are already flowing down uncontrollably. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please come to Zii. Chapter 3195. 1 second to remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. It's like he wants to vent out all the pain, loneliness, and grievances that he has experienced in this period of time. Boom! The 5th lightning strikes. Mayan is startled and quickly looks up. She sees the man next to her casually raise his hand, and a faintly discernible long sword appears in his hand. He gently swings it towards the sky. Boom! After a loud noise, the thick clouds are directly cut open. The 5th lightning strike of the heavenly punishment, which is halfway down, has not yet had the time to fall, and has already come to an abrupt stop. After the clouds dissipate, a red glow slowly appears in the sky. The mountains and rivers in front of her are dyed with a touching golden red. Mayan can't help but exclaim. Then she can't help but feel depressed. In Di Mingju's eyes, the heavenly punishment that almost tortured her to death is just a plaything that can be casually dealt with a swing of his sword. The gap in strength is so obvious, it's really too shocking. As soon as she raises her head, she's met with Di Mingju's cold and gloomy gaze. The way he's gnashing his teeth, it seems like he's itching to immediately swallow her whole. You're only at the crossing tribulation stage, yet you dare to touch the 5 elements law. Jun Mayan, are you tired of living? Mayan smiles guiltily and is about to say something. But she sees Di Mingju suddenly turn his head, looking at the distant hills. Mayan also can't help but look over. The mountains are shrouded in clouds at dawn, making people unable to clearly see the scene in the distance. They can only vaguely see a vague figure, and a glaring red fluttering in the air. Is it Li Weiran? Seeing that red, Mayan instinctively thinks of the little pervert who would sometimes harm people, and then save people, and whose temperament is always unpredictable. As she is thinking about this, the morning mist in the mountains seems to be blown away by a gust of wind. The youth's spotless white clothes and bright red silk are slowly revealed. It really is Li Weiran. Mayan grinds her teeth, grabs Di Mingju, and is about to rush up. It couldn't be better, she can finally realize Di Mingju's wish to smash this little pervert. But the next moment, she sees the youth slowly taking off the red silk and opening his eyes. Mayan's movements suddenly stop. A touch of ice blue, hidden by the long eyelashes, slowly opens. In that split second, Mu Yen didn't even have the time to clearly see the youth's true appearance. Everyone's attention was drawn to that pair of eyes. Because those are a pair of ice blue eyes that are extremely similar to Demingju's. At this moment, this pair of eyes is quietly watching her and Demingju with a somewhat treacherous smile. Mu Yan sucked in a breath of cold air, wanting to see Li Weiran's real face again. However, the person in front of him suddenly disappeared into the clouds. Mayan stares blankly for a good while, then she abruptly turns her head to look at Demingju. Actually, upon closer inspection, the two of them were not exactly alike. Demingju's facial features are handsome and deep, while Li Weiran is born with a kind of youthful beauty. Just based on a pair of icy blue eyes, it was naturally impossible to determine the connection between the two. After all, even though there were only a few blue-eyed people in the world, it did not mean that they did not exist. Her Xiaobao was one of them. Mu Yan had even heard from her third senior brother that there was a special clan in the Shushan continent. Almost everyone in the clan had the same eye color as Xiaobao. Perhaps it was just her imagination just now. Mayan is staring at Demingju in a trance. Suddenly, she's fiercely pulled into someone's embrace. Jun Mayan, have you forgotten that Ben Jun warned you before that you're not allowed to go out and attract bees and butterflies? Mobile users, please browse and read. Chapter 3196. 1 second to remember, LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. Mayan is startled, thinking to herself, Demingju, do you and Qi Huang have the same brain circuit? Could it be that the focus at this time is whether I'm attracting bees and butterflies? Moreover, Li Weiran has only appeared for a short while. She didn't even say a word to him. How did Demingju see that she knows him? Cough. Demingju, we haven't seen each other for so long. Are you sure you don't want to tell me about lovesickness and say sweet nothings, but to talk about other men? Mayan wraps her hands around Demingju's neck, looking at him with a sweet smile. The man's originally taut face finally can't be maintained, little by little changing into a gentleness that he would never show in front of others. He suddenly reaches out and pulls her into his arms again, hoarsely saying, Yen Yen, I missed you so much. Only at this moment does Demingju remove all pretense. He completely reveals the stormy feelings in his heart in front of Mayan. This time, they've really been separated for far too long. It's been so long that both of them have experienced a calamity of life and death, and almost couldn't see each other again. Mayan nestles in Demingju's arms, slowly narrating everything that happened during this time. Besieged on all sides, at the end of the line. Forcibly breaking through, life and death in an instant. There's also her master's death, Ning Su's ruthlessness, and the bewilderment and loneliness when she woke up alone in the gravel hill. Mayan thought that she would be very sad and angry when she talks about these things. However, she's full of regret and sorrow for master's death. Everything else is narrated by her in an extremely flat tone. Mayan looks up at the man in front of her, the corners of her mouth hooking up into a shallow smile. Perhaps it's because no matter how difficult the situation, she has never truly despaired. As long as the spirit void ring on her finger still shines. As long as she thinks of Demingju and Xiaobao waiting for her in the Shushan continent. She will give birth to infinite courage and hope, and then continue to grow stronger, never giving up. Demingju frowns as he listens, the anger and murderous intent in his eyes interweaving into a storm. If it weren't for Ning Su and the others, they would have already been killed by Mayan. He would have dismembered these people into 10,000 pieces. Demingju looks down at the woman in his arms, annoyed and distressed that he couldn't stay by her side. But she can't help but be proud of his face. Even in the Shushan continent, even in the once all-powerful Xinyu sept, who could reach Mu Yan's level? He triggered the 9-star chain and saved the Shushan continent. Furthermore, with his cultivation at the tribulation stage, he had mastered the most terrifying power of the 5 elements. Thinking of this, Di Mingju's face sinks again. In the future, even if it's a matter of life and death, you're not allowed to use the power of law, do you hear me? Mayan stares blankly. Why? She could understand that. But if he didn't use it in a moment of life and death, was he going to watch himself or the people around him die? Di Mingju says coldly, I don't know where you learned the trick to grasping the power of law. But Yen, I must tell you, the power of the laws of the 5 elements is something that even I can't easily grasp, let alone use lightly. If you use the power of laws when your body and soul aren't strong enough, the consequences won't be as simple as the divine punishment heavenly lightning. Mu Yen suddenly remembered the second time she used the power of law, the scene where her body was completely out of control. She murmurs, I'll lose control of my body. That's not all. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 3197. Di Mingju says, Law is the foundation of all things in the world. Now that you've grasped the law of the 5 elements, you should know what kind of terrible power it is. As long as anyone uses spiritual energy as a foundation to cast a spell, you only need to use the power of law to fundamentally disintegrate the spell. You can also endow the spiritual energy in the air with the powerful attack power of any of the 5 elements. Mu Yen, what do you think a person who can master this kind of power should be called? Mu Yen's pupils slightly contract, and after a long while, she spits out a word, God. Yes, God. When she fought with Ning Su in the Shuzhen continent, she had a faint feeling. In the heavens and the earth, only I am supreme. As long as the sword is in hand, I can behead all living things in the world. That feeling of disdain and invincibility is both addictive and frightening. Now that Di Mingju points it out, isn't it like a god, looking down on the ants of the world? Possessing the power of God, but without the body and soul to bear and control this power. When used again and again, what will the final result be? Will the soul be crushed? Or will the body be taken over? Di Mingju shakes his head, I don't know. Seeing Mu Yen staring blankly at him, Di Mingju's eyes reveal a trace of a smile, and he reaches out to gently scrape the tip of her nose, because in this world, there has never been a person who could master the power of law in the hollow immortal realm, and there is no one like you, Mu Yen, who can casually use the power of law. Moreover, it's the power of the 5 elements, which is at the peak of the power of law. Even Di Mingju himself, at Mu Yan's age, couldn't do this. The woman in front of him is so outstanding, unique in the world. And thinking that this Jun Mu Yen belongs to him, Di Mingju's heart softens, as if soaking in a hot spring. He leans down, his eyes deeply staring at Mu Yen, and says word by word, because this power is too powerful, so powerful that it makes people addicted and dependent, so powerful that it exceeds the limits of the heavenly Tao. Once used, there is bound to be a heavy price to pay. This price is not only the heavenly thunder, but also something that you and I can't afford. So Mu Yen, promise me, before you reach the immortal king realm, you are not allowed to use the power of law, do you hear me? Mu Yen nods gloomily. His divine sense, however, was crazily roasting Qi Huang in the space. Qi Shao Huang, what the hell are you teaching? What did it mean to be invincible if one grasped the power of laws? Invincible is invincible, but I can't use it. This is even more depressing than not letting me master it. Can't you teach me something practical? For once, Qi Huang did not retort. After a while, he said, in any case, don't use the power of laws in the future. You are not allowed to use it again. This time, I was wrong. Mu Yen is shocked. The proud and arrogant Lord Artifact Spirit actually said, I was wrong. Was she dizzy or deaf? But Seven Brilliance had already lowered his head. This further proved how terrifying the power of the laws was. However, Mu Yen couldn't guarantee that she wouldn't use it. What if it was a matter of life and death for someone she cared about? What if he was really at the end of the line and had no choice but to use it? With such a powerful force in her hands, could she really hold back from using it? Chapter 3198. Immediately after, Mayan feels something drilling into her sea of knowledge, and finally stops on her sword heart. It forms a small blue ring, and wraps around her natal sword. But after a moment, the ring disappears. Mayan looks up at Di Mingju in confusion. She hears the man's cold snort in her ear. With your incorrigible temperament, it's impossible for you not to use the power of law. So it's better for Ben Jun to seal you first. Mayan, fine, Di Mingju, you're ruthless enough. But since she's sealed, she doesn't have to hesitate in a life and death situation. Mayan is actually relieved. She has been holding the god's scepter in her hand, and in a critical moment, she doesn't think about fighting to become stronger. Instead, she wields the scepter to defeat the enemy. In fact, it's not good for her to improve her strength. Mayan hooks her arms around Di Mingju's neck, and gently kisses him on the cheek. Husband's lesson is right, I won't dare to do it again. Di Mingju tries his best to keep a straight face. But the blush still spreads from his ears to his neck. Even his tightly pursed lips can't help but curve into a sweet arc. Mayan hasn't seen him for a long time, and it's rare to see him so pure. She can't help but giggle. Who knew that in the next moment, she would hear Di Mingju say coldly, Li Weiran, Mayan, aren't you going to talk about the rotten peach blossom you provoked in the gravel hill? Cough, cough, cough. Mayan almost chokes on her own saliva. Di Mingju, don't talk nonsense. What rotten peach blossom? This pervert is crazy. He wanted to kill me from the beginning. I used the power of law earlier because he drew over the people from the Mountain Split sect and stole my Tian Mo Chin. In short, I wish for nothing more than for you to hammer this little pervert to death to vent my anger, so why would I take the initiative to provoke him? Di Mingju snorts coldly, his eyes overflowing with murderous intent. But this time, it's clearly not aimed at Mayan, but at Li Weiran. He has never heard of the name Li Weiran. He's also sure that he hasn't seen the figure that he just caught a glimpse of. But this person disappeared without a trace. It's not something that the people of the floating island could achieve. So this person should be from the Shushan continent. As long as it's someone from the Shushan continent, he has to dig them out even if he has to dig 3 feet into the ground. Mu Yen sees that she has successfully diverted the conflict and just breathes a sigh of relief. Suddenly, she curled up in his arms. Then, a furry little head popped out. The moment it sees Di Mingju, it immediately pounces over happily. G. Ah! Daddy! Daddy! It's really Daddy! Was Huang dreaming? Di Mingju grabs the little chick by the nape of its neck and lifts it up to his eyes. He says in disgust, how come its strength hasn't improved at all? His body became round after eating. Little Inghua tilted its head, the ahog on its head bouncing up and down as it squinted its eyes, revealing an adorable smile. Chirp chirp, Daddy. Mu Yen couldn't help but laugh. Actually, Huang is very powerful. If it wasn't for him, I might have already died in the lightning. Di Mingju looks at the giggling stupid chicken, resolutely refusing to admit that he has such a useless and stupid son. Since he was going to be his son, he had to train him fiercely. He would only be qualified if he had a certain level of strength. But when he thought of the little chick's luck attribute that Mu Yen had told him about, he restrained himself. He threw the little chick into Mayan's arms. Coo, coo, coo. Little Inghua is anxious, wanting to pounce into Di Mingju's arms again. Quack quack, quack quack, wah wah wah, sounds coming out of its mouth. Chapter 3199. Papa, cook a meal. Papa's cooking is the best, even better than blindfolded brother's cooking. Blindfolded brother cooks for mom and Huang Huang every day, but Huang Huang still likes Papa's cooking the most. Di Mingju's sharp gaze suddenly turns to Mayan. Mayan holds her forehead and looks at the sky. At this moment, she really wants to chop up this stupid son of a chicken and steam him. Next, Di Mingju has an in-depth discussion with Mayan on the question of, can I eat the dishes made by other pretty boys? The instigator, the little chick, has long been slapped back into the space by the irascible and jealous Juanshangdaran. It was unknown when a beautiful courtyard had appeared in the middle of the mountains and fields. The water in the courtyard gurgles, the fragrance of flowers curls up, and the leaves rustle. This wasn't some kind of spatial treasure. It's an illusion created by Di Mingju's domain. Mellow spiritual power and fragrance fill the surroundings of the courtyard. Unknowingly, countless beautiful butterflies and glowing insects are attracted by the fragrance and spiritual power. They listen to the window lattices and fall among the stamens, intoxicated by the lingering and sweet spiritual power in the air. Inside the room, Mayan fiercely kicks Di Mingju away and angrily says, "You're not jealous at all. You're just using this as a pretext to make a fuss, seizing the opportunity to eat her clean." Di Mingju's eyes are filled with anger. His divine sense moves and the illusion created by the domain disappears without a trace. As soon as Mayan remembers that what happened just now actually happened under the real sky, her face can't help but turn darker. Di Mingju, this bastard, is becoming more and more shameless. When they first met, he clearly didn't even know how to cut his own throat. Every time she teased him, he would only blush proudly. And now, TSK, the past is unbearable. Mayan can't help but sigh. Di Mingju suddenly grabs her hand and whispers in her ear, "This is punishment. Next time, Yen Yen, if you attract bees and butterflies again, your punishment will be doubled." He licks his lips and says slowly, "Ben Jun is looking forward to the next punishment." Mayan angrily says, "Who attracted bees and butterflies? I don't even know where this little pervert Li Weiran popped out from to bother me. Can you blame me? I'm innocent, okay?" As for eating his cooking, it couldn't be helped. The charm of delicious food was irresistible. When she said the last sentence, Mayan felt a little guilty. She couldn't possibly say that it was because of the familiar aura on Li Weiran that she couldn't completely hate him. Before this, she did not know where this sense of familiarity came from. But now that he thought about it, it was because of Di Mingju. However, she wouldn't dare to say this even if she was beaten to death. Otherwise, this man who was the reincarnation of a vinegar spirit would torment her to death. Of course, in these few hours, aside from the in-death exchange, Di Mingju also gave her a brief account of what happened in the Shushan continent. For example, the calamity of the collapse of the sky, and the sudden turn of events, the 9 stars and the moon. At that time, Mu Yan was so shocked that her jaw almost dropped. She didn't expect that the commotion caused by her advancement would be known by everyone in the cultivation continent. The commotion it caused in the Shushan continent was even greater. But in any case, her 9 stars in a moon can help Di Mingju and Xiao Bao to be safe and sound, and obtain victory. This is really too good. As Mayan is thinking, she hears Di Mingju whispering in her ear, "I don't know who triggered the 9 stars in a moon and saved Ben Jun's and Xiao Bao's lives. Such a great favor, does Mayan think that Ben Jun should repay it with my body?" Chapter 3200. As early as when she killed Leng Yuexia, Mayan understood that Di Mingju already knew her identity as a Shen musician. It's just that the two of them didn't point it out. Di Mingju gave her endless tolerance and pampering, letting her keep her little secret. And because of Qi Huang's existence, Mayan didn't choose to confess. So hearing Di Mingju say this, Mayan couldn't help but laugh. Who said that the one who triggers the 9 stars and the moon must be a woman? What if it's a handsome guy? He saved my son, I think it's better if I go and repay him with my body. You dare. Di Mingju clasps her waist, saying rather fiercely, in this life, if you want to repay someone with your body, you can only give it to me. Mayan looks at him with a smile, then, for the sake of fairness, can Jun Shang also only give it to me? Di Mingju says without hesitation, and only you. The smile in Mayan's eyes deepens, her brows full of tenderness and sweetness. She doesn't know what kind of fate allowed her and Di Mingju to meet each other, know each other, and fall in love despite being separated by 2 worlds. But she will cherish this feeling, and work hard for it, until they can stay together forever, never to be separated. But then, Mayan remembers the current situation of the Shushin continent, and she can't help but knit her brows. The Shushin continent, which is like heaven in the eyes of mortals, has unexpectedly been invaded by ghosts, and it's so dangerous. Thinking that Xiao Bao almost died in a place she couldn't see, Mayan's heart tightens. She really wants to rush to the Shushin continent right now, and protect her Xiao Bao by her side. But the ladder to heaven is broken, and the space barrier passage collapsed. Now, Di Mingju has paid a heavy price that she doesn't know about. It's easier said than done for her to ascend to the Shushin continent. Her hands are suddenly grasped. His tightly clenched fists were gently pinched by someone's fingers and opened them one by one. Seeing the red marks left on her palms, Di Mingju's face sinks. Ben Jun said, "Don't hurt yourself for anyone, not even for Xiao Bao." Mayan looks at Di Mingju, wanting to show a smile, but her eyes can't help but redden. Di Mingju, I miss Xiao Bao, I miss him very much. This kind of fragility, this kind of deep longing, she won't show it in front of others. Not even her fellow disciples of the Xiaoyao sect. But only Di Mingju is different. She was the demoness in the eyes of the world. God Jun, the Lord of 6 stars, the leader of the Nether Flame Army, was invincible in their eyes. But only Mu Yen herself knows that she also has a soft spot. She can't help but feel panic, fear, and longing. She was afraid that she couldn't protect the people she cared about. She's also afraid that she won't be able to stay with Di Mingju and Xiao Bao for a long time. It's only in front of Di Mingju that she doesn't hide these fragile feelings. Di Mingju sighs helplessly. Reaching out, he pulls her into his embrace, his murmuring voice carrying a love that seeps into the bones. I really don't know what to do with you. I originally wanted to spend more time with you and not let anyone disturb us. Mayan stares blankly at Di Mingju. She didn't understand what he meant. In the next moment, he felt a small body plunge into his embrace. A familiar sobbing voice came to her ears, Mother. Mother, Xiao Bao finally sees you again. An hour later. Di Mingju's face is so gloomy that it could drip water as he looks at the mother and daughter intimately cuddling together. Chapter 3201. Right now, he was filled with regret. He shouldn't have let Xiao Bao out of the portable space just because Mu Yen was sad. This little rascal was quite obedient when he was alone with her. As long as he's by Mu Yan's side, he will only snatch Mu Yan's attention away from him. For example, right now, this little bastard was pulling a long face and complaining. Mother, father is bad. Xiao Bao hugged Mu Yan's neck and snuggled in her arms. He said in a cold, childish voice, he told Xiao Bao that he wouldn't be able to see Nyangqin until 3 days later, and told Xiao Bao to wait in the portable space. He clearly wants to monopolize Nyangqin. Mu Yan nods, sharing the same hatred with him. Daddy is bad, we'll ignore him for 3 days. Xiaobao nodded heavily. Then she looks at Di Mingju's unsightly complexion, and she can't help but soften her heart. 3 days is too long. Still 1 day is fine. Mu Yan snorts out a laugh. She lowered her head and planted a kiss on his soft and tender cheek. All right, I'll listen to Xiaobao and ignore him for a day. Nyangqin. Xiaobao blushes and buries his whole body in Mayan's embrace, gently rubbing against her. Lingmeng's voice carried a hint of sobbing. Mother, I miss you so much. Nyangqin also misses Xiaobao. Mayan hugs him tightly in her arms, her voice also tinged with hoarseness. Very, very much. Mother. Xiaobao suddenly raised his head and looked at Mu Yan with his big blue eyes. He said excitedly, Daddy said that the floating island is different from the Shushan continent. There is spiritual qi and immortal qi here. Even if Xiaobao stays on the floating island, he can still cultivate. Mother, Xiaobao can stay by your side again. His small hands grabbed Mu Yan's clothes, his voice filled with apprehension. But little Bao hasn't broken through to Golden Immortal yet, so I can't protect Mother. Staying by Mother's side will only drag you down. Before he could finish his words, Mayan has already abruptly pulled him into her arms and interrupted him. Her voice was so happy that she was practically floating. But he's not looking at Xiaobao, but at Di Mingju. Di Mingju, is what Xiaobao said true? Could he really stay on the floating island? Are we really not going to separate anymore? Xiaobao blankly stares at Mayan's ecstatic expression. A bright smile slowly blossomed on her originally taut face. That pair of ice blue eyes that had been washed by water, at this moment, were clearer than the brightest sky, more resplendent than sapphires under the sunlight. It turned out that his mother didn't despise him for being too weak. It turns out that his mother also wants to be with him forever. Not waiting for Di Mingju to speak, Xiaobao hugs Mayan's arm and rubs it in satisfaction. Nyangqin, it's true. Xiaobao doesn't want to be separated from Mother ever again. Mu Yan picks him up and throws him into the air. Then, she hugs him again and kisses him heavily on his little face. All right, let's do it like before. Nyangqin and Xiaobao will travel the floating island together. No matter how dangerous the floating island was. As long as she could be with her beloved Xiaobao, she was not afraid of anything. The rims of Xiaobao's eyes were red, and a rare brilliant smile that matched his age blossomed on his cold and adorable little face that had always been taut. Di Mingju's gaze tenderly looks at the mother and son, who are laughing happily. Even if Mayan knows that it would be best for Xiaobao to leave her side and go to the Shushan continent, Di Mingju knows that her heart has always been hiding unspeakable longing and worry. It's just that she didn't want them to worry, so she didn't show it. And Xiaobao. Chapter 3202. In the Shushan continent, he was very well behaved, very obedient, so well behaved that it made people feel sorry for him, and they also had a deep attachment to him. However, when Xiaobao was only by his side, he had never revealed such a brilliant, pure, and childish smile. In Xiaobao's heart, his mother is the most important. It's the same in Mayan's heart. Xiaobao was the most important person to her in this world. Di Mingju's heart is a little soft, but also a little sour and dull pain. Even though he knew that he shouldn't, he still couldn't help but think about it. If Xiaobao's biological father had not died. If this person appears in front of Mayan again. Was there any room for him to intervene in such a family of 3? Just as this thought flashes through his mind, a pair of small hands suddenly wraps around Di Mingju's neck. Xiaobao blushed and planted a soft kiss on his cheek. Daddy, don't be sad. Mommy and I will definitely go to your side as soon as possible. Mu Yan also very readily follows his good advice and kisses him on the cheek. Grinning, she says, "Be obedient and wait for us in the polar domain. You're not allowed to fool around, otherwise, when we get back, we'll make you look good. Go back." Mu Yan used this word. Di Mingju stares blankly. The dull pain in his chest is instantly replaced by softness. Who would have thought that in the next moment, she would hear Xiaobao complain in a crisp and childish voice, "Oh, that's right, mother, in the Shushan continent, there was an old auntie who confessed to father and said bad things about mother. She also said that daddy sacrificed himself to save her, so she wanted to repay him with her body." Di Mingju's complexion stiffens, staring incredulously at his son. Then he turns his head and meets Mayan's smiling yet not smiling eyes. "How did the emperor reprimand me just now? Flirting with flowers and grass, huh?" Di Mingju keeps a straight face, expressionless as he says, "In Ben Jun's eyes, apart from Yen Yen, there is no distinction between men and women. There has never been such a thing as risking one's life to save someone or devoting oneself to someone else." Mayan crosses her arms over her chest. "It's not up to you to say it, it's up to me to say it. Come, tell me this fairy's name first. How did he meet you? How many times had they held hands? What's the most intimate contact? Don't tell me it's another betrothed." "Ugh." The clear and crisp questioning voice instantly disappeared. Just like that, Di Mingju takes the two of them into his arms. Then, he covers Xiaobao's eyes, and firmly stops that chattering mouth of his. "Ben Jun will say it again, there is no child marriage. Ben Jun only has one fiancé, Jun Mayan." Mayan wrinkles her nose. She's very dissatisfied with Jun Shang's lenient attitude of not being honest. "You want me to explain the situation in every detail. You don't even let go of the little baby I met in the gravel hill, but you yourself don't report it. Di Mingju, your ideological awareness needs to be improved." Halfway through her words, Mu Yan suddenly widened her eyes and exclaimed, "Oh no, I actually forgot about the person waiting in the gravel hill. Cultivation Continent, Linglong Island." Yu Yan Ran stared blankly at the elixir in her hand, her expression miserable as tears rolled down her cheeks. As soon as Huang Shouchuan came in and saw her like this, he felt extremely distressed and repeatedly advised, "Miss, how can you let this thing hurt your body again? Since Di Mingju is heartless, why do you still care about him? There are many good men in the world, you can definitely find one who is wholeheartedly devoted to you." As he said this, Huang Shouchuan's eyes hid deep affection and pain. But when Yu Yan Ran looked at him, it was very well hidden. Yu Yan Ran stared at him, and suddenly whispered, "Big brother Huang, you said before that you obtained the pill recipe for the magnificent quicksand from Ling Yuexia, is that true? You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."